Hello to all fans of Naruto Lemon. I will post all Naruto Lemon Yaoi, Yuri, or Naruto Lemon stories only on the Boosty channel because Uncle YouTube condemns this. Therefore, I invite everyone who wants Naruto Lemon content to my Boosty channel. Good luck. The beginning of the story. Tomatoes a little more, and he will be sick of them previously beloved red flesh. Gradually with enviable regularity became hated by the Uchiha, so simply. Do not change their habits, and do not even turn away from their favorite delicacy, but then there was another Naruto Madara take her. Every day got him tomatoes, no thanks of course that tomatoes they are ramen. But still when will it end team from a loud scream in the ears rang. In his 18 years, he felt dissatisfied with everything old man. Dabi. Tiredly said the Uchiha, closing his eyes, this blonde idiot. Shines her happy face every day at the apartment allocated to him, what is there to be happy about here, she is not expected here. At all, and Sasuke shows this with his whole appearance, only Naruto. Does not understand hints of indirect text, continuing this damn tradition. Ripe, cheerfully chirping, blonde, flutter like a butterfly around the small room. With a bag where delicious and juicy fruits lay, stop, coldly asks, orders. The brunette, demonstrating all his indifference, a fighting girlfriend, former teammates, note. Grimacing and sticking out his tongue at the guy, turns away from him and goes to the small kitchen, where he unpacks the purchase. Yes, when will you stop being such a goat? A ringing girl's voice is heard from there, in which only in serious, life-threatening situations do notes of carefree positivity and universal joy disappear. It seems that when Sasuke tried to kill her, he still hit her hard with his head and, to me, well, or he drove hard with a foot backslash and with a hand backslash with an elbow backslash with a knee, or even a chidori it short-circuited well her left hand. Hurt after remembering that brawl, and there was nothing to hurt, there are no hands, phantom pains, mother of yours. When will you stop shining your face at my house every day? Very famous at Chekhov's. Patience was cracking at the seams, and you can't put this blonde out then immediately start to raise her hands, she will start screaming about eternal friendship. It will only make it worse and destroy the apartment then at best. Only the table with 2 plastic bags of tomatoes on it will remain intact, since their people will specifically ignore and not touch. Having accepted this simple truth, Sasuke realized that he did not want to be left without housing and a roof over his head, otherwise this blonde would come up with the idea of giving him shelter, and he definitely won't tolerate this. With all his unshakable composure, the Uchiha shuddered. No, in that case, he and Nina's grandchildren will be ready to go just to get away from this Dabi, or will even think of going to him twice a day out of spite, and that's in the best case, because in the worst case read above. When will you stop sitting within 4 walls all the time? Parried Uzumaki already flashing her blinding smile to the point of pain in the eyes in front of the Uchiha's face, and she doesn't care that every day it hits the wall of indifference, she's used to it. We've already talked about this topic. If he had 2 hands he would have thrown her out of here like a kitten, grabbing her by the scruff of the neck and also foam for acceleration, giving it a burning and a cold look, and then she shook her head waving her long golden hair, only now nipples. Noticed that her hair was loose. Well, yes, in fact, here are the usual 2 ponytails to tie on the top of her head, because under the black-orange sports jacket there is the same stump as his under the white hari. Sakura then called them idiots, shedding burning tears trying to save nothing. I don't want to hear. She demonstratively covered her ear with her healthy hand. You'll get covered in dust here, moldy. You'll die of loneliness. The girl, who absolutely wailed, didn't like the detachment of the last heir of the Uchiha clan. You still have to revive the clan, and because of Ion's detachment and ascetic lifestyle, the Uchiha fan club was in no hurry to be reborn like a phoenix from the ashes, and if the fan club is not reborn then Uchiha will die of loneliness. Such was the logical chain in Naruto's head. You also noticed nipples with surprise, noticing how a barely visible blush appeared on her tan cheeks. In short, got her to finish. Uzumaki did not let Him shut his mouth with a juicy red tomato, where she pulled it out from, could only guess because she was about 2 meters away from the bags, and there was nothing in her hands before that. She giggled quietly, she threw a look at her nipples, full of fun, and hurried to retreat for now, and it was this individual who was turned on her did not catch her in response for her impudent impudence. The brunette almost choked on a berry spitting out and variety small ripe and a very aromatic raft, to which, on the basis of recent events, he had developed a persistent hostility, progressing due to the intervention of Naruto. Uzumaki Sasuke was furious from the presence of Uzumaki. She could in a specific way bring him to the maximum boiling point with her presence alone, and something had to be done about it. Meditations did not help, anger did not recede, especially brought out, and carelessness. Friendliness, where has it been seen to appear to a traitor with the sweetest smile on his face and behave so casually in the company of a former nuknin, and as if Nipples all this time was in the village and did not betray anyone living with Orochimaru for 3 years. Your gloom infuriates me. Calmly, said Naruto, laying out apples in front of the Uchiha. Thank heavens, not tomatoes. Forgive me, today there were no fresh tomatoes. More precisely to say, there wasn't enough for a third bag. The girl smiled guiltily, drilling her gaze into the impenetrable guy sitting opposite me, and your eternal positivity irritates me. And he was also surprised how she could remain as bright and cheerful as years ago when he wanted to kill. For the first time, running away from Konoha after those terrible events of their already big brawl, which almost cost both of them their lives. They paid a small price of losing their hands. His real by strength and overly cheerful mood, sometimes it seemed to him quite feigned. It's in my innate, brushed off. Naruto shrugged. So be patient, friend. Uzumaki sat down next to him on the same sofa. In 2 months of Naruto's daily visits to this apartment, she allowed herself such liberty to sit next to him for the first time, and this showed how much she trusted him. So it was interpreted. Nipples. I also have, similarly repeated the brunette from under his brows, looking at the former teammate who was casually sitting next to her with an appetite, chewing an apple. Well, yes, smiling. Uchiha, such nonsense. Naruto laughed, imagining how Sasuke smiles sweetly, and the hearts of everyone around him melt from the sight of this outlandish smile that had forgotten something on the lips of the Sharingan carrier. The laughter immediately died down, and the imagination clearly drew every detail of the smiling nipple. And I imagined how sweetly you smiled. Cheerfully, the blonde said dreamily, closing her eyes, from which one strange thought crept into Sasuke. And is Naruto in love with him? No, it's the same nonsense as the sweet smile on his lips. Naruto and silence are completely incompatible, but still it would be better if she kept quiet, keeping her thoughts to herself. Still, the idea of Naruto's tender feelings for him firmly settled in the dark-haired head, not wanting to let him go even under the oppression of the cold voice of reason saying that this is nonsense. Go away. And inside, everything trembled from another wave of anger. This wild guess stirred up his whole insides, destroying the barely achieved balance. Stop driving me away. Still in the voice blonde slipped notes of fatigue. From day to day, to fight with Uchiha, this kurama to me to pacify the fox, more accommodating than this nasty guy. She to him with all her soul, and he is a goat. In one word, stop coming when not invited. He turned his head to the side, sitting next to his girlfriend, and with hidden horror met so close with the look of clear blue eyes to instantly begin to drown in their crystal and blueness. For such life did not prepare him to perceive her as a pain in the ass, easier when she is at a distance of outstretched arms, but now she is sitting next to their faces in unacceptable proximity. Although the concept of unacceptable proximity for a nipple is 15 centimeters to not shoulders touching each other. Kami-sama. How did he miss this moment? This damn little Devon barely fit too. And you will never call me reasonably, noted Uzumaki, stretching her lips into a sad smile, and somewhere there in the depths of those unrealistically blue eyes he saw echoes of pain. When she is so close you want to run away. Cowardly tail between your legs. It is amazing because nothing can scare the great and mighty Uchiha, and Uzumaki just did it with her closeness. Suddenly gave voice to the revived conscience. He hurts Naruto, pushing away her Attempts to improve the old relationship because their connection is so strong, and what to do with her nipples, he would gladly tear her apart, which he tried to do for a long time, but will the most straightforward girl he knows stop this? No. And Naruto tried to transfer her from a state of hostility to friendship, because rivalry proved that in strength they are equal. Both of them are armless. Sitting in the heart, an embryo of guilt appeared, which immediately began to feed more blondes. But don't worry, I will get you out of any shit. And a sunny smile lit up her tanned face again, and her eyes shone with warmth, and from the house too. Having torn her butt off the cozy sofa, she waved goodbye to him as usual and went out the window, and this girl really did get him out of any trouble, even when he was being tried upon returning to the village for all his crimes. She burst into a closed meeting and stood up for him. Tsunade sighed tiredly, supported the kunoichi, and the elders had no choice but to agree with the voice of the Kage and the heroine of the war, who was already predicted to become the Hokage. Therefore nipples, and lived in a small apartment. They are in the casemates of the village, and even the rank and status and everything was returned. Even the clan lands were returned, and all this is Naruto's merit. But Uzumaki amazed him also by the fact that she agreed with Tsunade something. And she will make him a prosthetic hand based on Hashirama's cells with the support of Orochimaru, who was also acquitted with the participation. Naruto, the girl crumbled into a pancake, but did everything possible to make the nipples feel at home. They vegetated in the dungeon. Conscience began to actively propagandize that here is what a smart Naruto and Sasuke is. Ungrateful, and also offends the girl, and she tries. For his sake, the feeling of guilt grew exponentially, along with his stream of thoughts about all the merits of Uzumaki, for which he owes her. He wanted to howl like a wolf from the dilemma tearing him apart. On the one hand, he is moral, not worthy of such an attitude, and on the other hand, she did not ask her to try so hard. Uchiha can't wait for these visits of Naruto to his modest and small abode to end this impudent kunoichi. Does not give him peace of mind with my presence, and in principle with my existence over the past couple of days. He realized that he was wrong, but he would not admit it even under threat of death. No one asked her, he repeated to himself when his thoughts returned to the beneficent Naruto. She helps everyone without asking for anything. In return, he continued his attempts to cool his rebellious conscience and extinguish the feeling of guilt. A cold shower no longer put his thoughts in order and did not relax the people, but there was too much in his life. Every day she flashes her face at his house, so now she settled in his thoughts. I wonder what stage is next. Yes, it was a strange question. Sasuke understood a little more, and he would go crazy from all this. Her presence now brought it many times more noticeable, because it was embarrassing to look her in the eyes, because she is such a good girl. She does everything for him, even forgave his betrayal. No, not like that, never considered him a traitor to faith in him, even when he threatened to wipe the fuck off the face of the earth without leaving even a stone like Pain did. That's who is really generous. In comparison with him, Konoha Cypher had the opportunity to restore the village, and when he tried to kill for one kurama, having pulled into another world with all the other bijou. All this she wrote off to the fact that he was just confused, and she helped him to understand himself, so the blonde said at the council, and both kindness and benefactor infuriated him even more, especially in relation to him. Sasuke no longer knew where to go from this omnipresent fair-haired splinter, having drunk himself not in the ass, but in the very heart. Leaving the shower, he did not expect to immediately stumble upon Naruto sitting on the windowsill earlier than usual, much earlier. And Sasuke began to reproach himself for thinking too much, that he did not even hear how she entered. Then hearing that the door opened, turned around, seeing in amethyst eyes almost blazing fire of anger and rage. But her mood today, nothing will spoil even the usual unusual behavior. Uchiha, you have shame. There are nipples. Held his hand on his hip, holding a towel which he managed to wrap himself in a matter of seconds, while the girl turned her head in his direction. At least he had nothing to be ashamed of in the war. All the time in the camps you could even see men and women washing in the river, not at all embarrassed by their nakedness in front of each other, but being naked in front of the ubiquitous Uzumaki was beyond his strength. Why was there no answer? The girl shook her head without even blinking. seeing the almost naked Uchiha, and that I have good news. It seems she was holding back all this time, otherwise. There is no way to explain the fact that a moment later she was jumping around his apartment like she was stung, splashing her hands, and shouting something inarticulate. "You won't come to me anymore," the Uchiha quipped, twisting his lips. Svar 1. Smirk, stop being sarcastic, the topic has already been forgotten. The old appeal to him stirred up strange feelings in him, or rather the meaning that she put into it, and earlier it was he who caused these sensations, but it was unpacified, continuing to sparkle brighter than the sun, and it seemed that she would soon crack, because no one can smile so widely well. Speak, softened nipples, leaning his back against the smooth surface of the door from doubts, looking at the former teammates, probably now will say something like that. She found a new variety of tomatoes, or some other nonsense that can so excite this hyperactive person. Hands are ready, and after that, such a squeal of happiness spread through the apartment that for seconds nipples went deaf, and Naruto, lowering the tone, continued to jump from the overwhelming and emotions, and only now he noticed the damn tomatoes that were scattered on the floor. "Kami-sama, soon you will not come to me from doing nothing." The village shared her joy, only he was more glad that it's so again. Missions to missions. This is some amount of time that it will be impossible for them to see each other. Long live the inner calmness, rejoiced Uchiha. Naruto cutting glass, and so Alka phrase destroyed all the joy from the news, smashing to smithereens. She was tired of this impenetrability and coldness of a friend. It was painful to come to him every day in an attempt to support, because everyone in the village angrily whispered about the last Uchiha, seeing in him a reflection of Madara, betrayed once, will give and again trust. He did not inspire a drop, so Uchiha supported almost everyone since graduation. But Naruto is very active, and she did not care that Sasuke. These gossip and rumors do not affect it, turned out, so she selflessly bangs her head against the wall every day in an attempt to pass through it, smashing her forehead into blood with masochistic stubbornness. Naruto was killed by this, but since she is under no for almost done, she found herself another occupation, to make Sasuke Uchiha's life as usual as possible, and finally establish their former friendship. After all, such is their destiny. All this time she suffered from his attitude towards herself, but her boundless patience and faith in the good did not allow her to give up. But honestly, her hands dropped as soon as she left his apartment, and now she could not restrain herself. She suddenly darkened and fell silent again, hid her eyes, darkened from resentment and pain under her thick light bangs. Everything inside was torn apart from this, ached and cracked at the seams. "My heart, I support you," as if Kurama inside was raging and threatening to kill. The red-eyed one got him that the vessel is killed like this. The spider I did not ask, calmly noticed the black-eyed one over for her with a cold look, but inside everything shrank into a lump from her enticed look, and it was not necessary, could at least thank you to say to fight every time, and the wall that he erected between them was already impossible. The soul was broken into blood, and the treatment was given slowly and painfully. In the head flashed the thought that it was a pity that he was not dressed, otherwise she would have gladly grabbed him by the chest, would have shaken him off properly. Stopping near him and standing on tiptoe, she with undisguised fury blazing in her blue eyes looked into his eyes, equally breathing in the area of the chin. "I live here for you, and you, ungrateful," carried the girl even outwardly, and shook from the already undisguised irritation. "I did not ask you," clearly, loudly, and with maximum pressure he said over for Naruto with an incinerating look that, if desired, could become such. In fact, at the moment the brunette felt not only discomfort from the feeling of guilt that chewed at the sight of the Jinchuriki, but now from her impermissibly impudent closeness and unpunished invasion of the personal comfort zone. "Get away from me already," with the usual cold intonation said Sasuke, complaining that it would be almost impossible to push her away. Naruto only angrily gritted her teeth, not finding what to answer, because nipples are right. Damn right, and she broke down. "It's her own fault. What does she want from an emotionless bastard with psychological trauma aggravated after Madara's revelation of the true reason for the murder of the clan? Why the hell did I forget here?" She no longer Knew whether to be angry at the Uchiha or at herself for her stupidity was instantly cooled from. Understanding the current situation, she simply placed a high bar of expectations on him. Yes, for the first time, she expects at least some gratitude for her help and not from a person like this arrogant and proud brunette H&M Spider, VSKY, meaningfully chuckled black-eyed, feeling how her hot breath begins to irritate him and scorching the skin in the area of the chin. About intimacy, he will remain silent at all, and the most irritating thing is the smell he has already begun to greedily inhale. The barely perceptible sweet floral fruity aroma emanating from her hair or skin. This is his memory. There was no time for now. Well, in short, I notified you, the girl was mistaken, the mood is ruined, nipples are just a master at ruining it, everything inside ached and groaned, and from the disappointment he felt and the broken hopes, it's strange why it bothers her so much, we don't stitch it up. Asti, indifference, Uchiha, yes, it bothered her before, but she had never felt so lousy in her soul. She lowered her head, took a step back, hiding her eyes behind her thick bangs, another small step, and she magically steps on a tomato, staggering from surprise. Trying to take a step to the left, but again, here's the damn tomato, another step to the side, and again an obstacle. While she was trying to step into the place where there were no damn tomatoes, she got tangled in her legs and slipped on the crushed liquid, flew like a ram at the Uchiha, having lost her balance, and didn't have enough intelligence to stick to the floor with the help of chakra. The Uchiha rolled his eyes tiredly. Naruto, such a Naruto, even being a heroine of the war, manages to slip on a tomato and fly down like a stone. Even funny elite shinobi put on his shoulder blades. Vegetable is not upholstered, and Madara is nothing but a small soulless tomato. Brunette reacted quickly, having managed to grab the girl under the elbow towel from the hips. Of course, flew under her feet, but in fact, nothing terrible in essence. Shinobi have no sense of embarrassment and shame, and Naruto is a clear example of this. Breaks into his home consistently once a day without thinking about the fact that he is a guy and maybe he has a girlfriend here, or he likes to walk naked around the house. Uzumaki slammed her face into the guy's chest, feeling a sharp pain in her nose. That his ribs are made of iron. Even sparks flew from her eyes, and as transferred escaped from the collision with the rib cage of the Uchiha, but after a moment it was clear that this was not a significant blow of victory in the nose. Immediately hit a sharp smell of shower gel. Strange, piña, I even looked swam and cheek and feel the cool and wet skin of the guy was exciting, and from this weakness spread to the legs and they under to sillies, but here the nipples reacted, holding the only hand on the weight. Trying to lift the clumsy girlfriend to her feet, the dope slept as quickly as it came, intercepted by a strong hand of the Uchiha. The shoulder began not mid and tingling. To achieve balance, the blonde leaned on her hand and the lower back of her friend with some wild horror, realizing that there was no towel covering. Oh mommy, the skin immediately burned from the touch, although you can't call it a touch. Uzumaki with a death grip clung to him, pressing still, though snow on his body. His head went round from such closeness, both of them blood was seething and boiling. Kami-sama only knows how much strength it took him to maintain a normal heart rhythm, and no adventures did not end there. Naruto decided to bring it to the peak of madness, abruptly straightening up Shijubi, her duri smeared and on his chest. With lips light, weightless to the point of ugliness, hot exciting touch found a response in the whole body. Uchiha, in line, stretched out from tension, enjoying the painful aftertaste, and this accidental touch enjoying to her lips as if with a hot knife. They ripped open the skin. No, not a touch of a butterfly, not like in novels. Much worse, with a hot iron imprinted in the heart and on the skin, so that later mercilessly remind of itself, left in the soul of the pikes. The girl was blazing. She had never been so ashamed. The look was full of confusion and embarrassment, and it was so exciting. And who the hell was talking? That shinobi have no sense of shame. Uchiha could not resist and touched her Eloy and hot cheeks with a hand of terrifying tenderness, running his fingertips along the stripes that sometimes make her look like a fox. Naruto pierced with electricity and nailed her legs to the floor like lead, as if they were filled. She was shocked, looked at the same cold and impenetrable Uchiha, who also grinned seeing her reaction, continuing completely inappropriate and manipulations to enjoy this gesture or run away screaming. She did not know at the same time it was both pleasant and frightening, but what scared her more, warm and exciting feelings that fell on her head with his touch, or what did Uchiha do? Uchiha Sasuke motive gently strokes her cheek on this. The guy's palm did not stop easily moving to the cheekbone, murderously slowly, and dope of a beggar affectionately fell on the neck. Goodbye. Control amethyst class look slid over the flushed face, we remember burning in our own brain. Confused and red from embarrassment, Naruto drowning in a whirlpool of painfully sweet feelings, he dove in there with his head focused on slightly parted their lips, in amazement, fingers buried in soft golden hair covering the back of the head with his palm. Not thinking for a moment more, he approached the girl, shortening between them and so small distance suddenly seemed like an abyss. The girl nervously twitched and even languidly tried to turn away, but Sasuke did not allow her such liberty. Succumbing to the moment, he covered her lips, imperious, greedily, instantly receiving an answer pushed away. He did not expect that she would answer so quickly, without a fight. Common sense returned to voices that if he continues, then he will definitely lose himself. Dissolving in this unbearable blonde and blue eyes, there was no longer that one, beyond the utmost clarity, only the fog of intoxicating dope. She stood opposite him with a completely incomprehensible look, often blinking, often and licking her lips. Damn, black eyes again darkened inside, stirred that very desire that will push him to this ill-fated kiss. If she doesn't leave now, he will completely blow his mind. People, and she came to her senses, quickly catching the trajectory of his gaze. Covering her hot lips with her palm, she stared in horror at the Uchiha, with all her eyes lost in guesses what just happened. And damn, it's so nice that even inside everything is cramping from the sweet aftertaste of the wet and hot lips of the brunette. Get lost, get it already. Twice she didn't have to repeat. The girl rushed headlong to the cat still crushing tomatoes, leaving not only a mess on the floor, but also in Sasuke's soul. Naruto didn't come anymore, even when there were breaks between missions. She didn't shine her stupidity with a happy face, didn't wave welcomingly. Rustling a plastic bag of tomatoes, it turns out he got used to it, and the unbearable presence in his modest abode had to learn all the delights of longing for someone. Damn, Sasuke, Uchiha yearned for an unbearable blonde. It's incomprehensible to the mind Tsunade didn't give him missions still. Looking distrustfully, and Kakashi won't take the post of Kage anytime soon. It would be easier to come to an agreement with him. Mortal boredom brought him to the point that he wandered around the streets of Konoha, adjusting in complete solitude. Uzumaki got her way without even making an effort. Nipples left the house. The absence of the eternally active and noisy teammates affected him not in the best way, and the latest events that kiss firmly lodged in his head, occupying all thoughts. Shinigami witness, he missed him madly, and wanted more. His selfish possessive nature screamed about it. Discourages consciousness. It was a shocking discovery, to understand that annoying in all in the senses, unbearable, Naruto can not only occupy all his thoughts, but also cling to his heart with pincers. He almost hated and despised her from the very beginning. To admit to himself in his own affection was hard. Sometimes it seemed that it was just a bad dream. Damn Genjutsu, but not reality. Uchiha Sasuke is attached to Uzumaki Naruto, to the girl whom he hated for her carelessness and discouraging stupidity. For her enchanting charm and impenetrable friendliness, it became a pleasant, unpleasant surprise to see the object of his thoughts in the city square, sitting on a bench and dying. Juice eyes immediately rushed familiar too. Tall golden hosts, and the absence of the usual tracksuit. Uzumaki sat with her face exposed to the rays of the sun, amusingly squinting from the bright light, swinging her legs and smiling at her thoughts and his memory. For the first time he sees Naruto in other clothes, and to be honest, it would be better if she was in the usual maisel we are looking for eyes with her bright color suit than in a short t-shirt and shorts. Wanted to squeak teeth, cover up this disgrace, because the males passing by were giving her not very nice looks, or the nipples he himself had invented them. It seemed as if random passers-by were almost undressing Her with their gaze, and some were brazenly groping her all over in their thoughts, coke and again. What is he thinking about? Jealousy flooded him to the brim. It became clear that it was unbearable for him to just look and do nothing, and he also wanted to strangle those daredevils who were looking at her. With such looks to burn them all, Amaterasu chopped them into mince, although the Uchiha was not distinguished by anything himself. One looked at her slender legs with sharp knees, flat stomach, and barely protruding ribs, thin arms, smooth curves of the shoulder, protruding collarbones, small, but no less seductive chest set on fire. She can be feminine when she wants. Damn. Uzumaki mentally cursed the brunette, still studying, devouring, looking at her. Unable to look away again, all mental locks flew off to be next to her in a split second without problems. Pull off the gray cloak. This happened faster. The girl's lips stretched into a contented smile. She has been feeling his presence for a minute. And now even closer, probably standing next to him, and angry. Mission accomplished. Uchiha is angry, and shows almost everyone his rights to her. A familiar smell hit his nose, and a cloak fell on Shush's shoulders, hiding exposed areas of the body. The owner grumbled discontentedly. Naru, opening one eye and stretching her lips, sly smile, but this is unnecessary. The girl quickly removed the unnecessary thing, throwing it at the feet of Uchiha, continuing to enjoy the excellent weather and sunbathed. PF nipples did not even know what to answer to such impudence. In fact, the girl told the caustic truth. Kami-sama, yes, it turns out she has brains. That's a surprise. He just saw. On the other hand, she is absolutely unusual and terribly attractive. There is nothing better than if he had nailed her. Then there were just as many opportunities, but he felt sorry for her, and now he feels sorry for himself that he was imbued with frighteningly warm and very touching feelings for her. Lifting the cloak, he again threw it over the blonde's bare shoulders, wrapped it tighter, and transferred the noise of the tires to her apartment, ignoring the surprised look and immediately evaporating as soon as her feet touched the floor, because nipples are the best at running away, leaving no answers. The last representative of the Uchiha clan, I don't remember how long his vision of the world was limited to dry information in black and white wrapping. The understanding that only after returning to the village, these dull colors began to be diluted with almost new, long-forgotten colors of different shades from the times of a serene early childhood. Overtook completely suddenly, even more precisely, one can say about today, such a palette of emotions. He had not yet experienced brightness. The variety of emotions could be compared with one blonde changing in character as quickly as the well-known Hashirama Senju. Except that she rarely went from one extreme to another, and for this she deserves a special thanks. Bronick came into some confusion when new colors were added, and these emotions did not let him go for a long time. The myth that the Uchiha were insensitive scoundrels was cracking at the seams, as was the composure of the former trader chamber. Find out at first glance, control over emotions could not withstand one overly emotional girl with each passing day, bending more and more under her pressure, revealing more and more about Chekhov's genuine emotions. His bravo and composure dissolved under the oppression of colors having a poisonous consistency, poisoning and corrosive ability. Otherwise, why his steadfastness wavered and icy calm from the villa near the sun to the foot, and ordinary colors filling his whole life were awarded destructively languid associations. Orange rack was associated with her unchanging suit, which hid under itself all the charms of a girl and figure, simplifying communication with Jinchuriki male friends. Still perceived her as their own, not seeing in her the most important gender differences. This was incredibly pleasing. Golden, her hair is soft and long and smells nice from them, and seeing this light he remembered the barely perceptible fruity floral fleur and softness of Naruto's hair, and wherever he saw this color constantly popped up in his head. That very moment when his palm entangled in light curls pulled her by the back of the head closer to collide with lips cherry of such a shade, her lips after a kiss, and taste almost the same, sweet, sour, and juicy. Damn, everywhere sell this damn cherry, and one look is enough for the lip to burn warm accordingly, and awaken the desire to touch her lips again, so that they again acquired this shade of red. Swamps on green flashed before the eyes when the male part of the population, seeing the heroine, strove for her, shaking hands, giving Candy flowers inviting on a date to the most suitable place for this in. The well-known Chiragyu Roman and Uzumaki stupidly smiling agreed to the invitation, accepting gifts. Wanted to erase all the stock exchange suitors' powder, and this is the minimum fists each time. Clenched until the joints crunched, she meters reeked of thirst for murder, and if negligent. Shinobi or civilians paid homage to their Zlot of Losov and gave it in front of his eyes, then he did not disdain driving them away. With his heavy aura passing by and not deigning to look at the blonde who smiled slyly at something rather squinting. Her eyes throwing a fleeting look at his gloomy cloud-like face, a rich red, such were the dreams, painful and sweet, filled with fiery and ardent passion, this careless loser, he also dreamed of her blinding with golden hair, pressing with a body in an orange-black suit, reducing amounts with cherry lips, and there's nothing to say about desire, she grew proportionally, we think about her. It was definitely easier for him to live when she showed up in his apartment every day. And even having crossed the invisible line, it would still be easier for him, because if Uzumaki Naruto, with her ram-like stubbornness, still dragged herself to him with damn tomatoes, spitting on his momentary anger, then Sasuke wouldn't have to experience all this murderous confusion of feelings, and go blind in a riot of colors because a new color flowed out from here and all this cacophony of feelings folded into a prickly black longing for this person, and this made her think more and more often, fantasizing about where the suits would be if Uzumaki were nearby. Less thoughts, nipples go crazy feeling the elusive edge of fantasy. Skin, these invisible lines invented by an inflamed brain excite not only the body but also consciousness, imprinting wherever possible. The brunette rushes about the bed, but not the icy moonlight, not the cool breeze swaying the thin airy fabric of the curtains do not cool the skin. Uzumaki Naruto with all its inherent daring impudence bursts into dreams of the type I sweet dope into simple fantasies, poisoning them with his presence, and becomes too much in his life, as if trying to make up for the time that he personally took from them, leaving the village for revenge, giving everything that was dear, giving up attachments and connections. Sasuke grinned. Even at a distance, not stops exerting any kind of influence on him, even in such a pleasantly unpleasant way. The last phrase was given incredibly difficult to the surprise of the carrier of the tooth of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke honestly did not understand what could attract him at all to such shameless penetrations into his dreams. It is painful, but so sweet. She dreams with frightening frequency, filling him to the brim, and every night the dreams become hotter, more passionate, and go beyond all boundaries of reason, revealing true desires, and this scares the Uchiha. He is in no hurry to admit that he has not only become attached to the blue-eyed blonde, but that he feels some semblance of warm feelings for her. Sasuke does not know how to admit his weaknesses, having given up on this for quite a long time, and Uzumaki is gradually becoming a weakness, constantly hinting that he is an ordinary person with his weaknesses, capable of feeling something other than cold and emptiness. Even in a dream, he resists, and naively innocent charms enveloping every cell of the body, and childish spontaneity intertwining with unexpectedly mature femininity, and go crazy. Brunette did not expect that he could fall so low with not going to the primitive feelings of attraction to the wild desire to possess her. All want to kiss soft tender lips to the saturated burgundy color, to see on tanned skin purple marks of passion, to tear from her sweet mouth sensual loud moans on the verge of a scream, to fill his body with her to the brim again and again. Hey, Uchiha, wake up! Naruto broke in, as always through the window, barely noticeable shadow sliding to the bed. Nipples he slapped tightly pressing his lips, pouring cold sweat. Blonde carefully put her hand on his shoulder, trying to stir, leaning over a friend team. The blue-eyed one stretched out, loosening her grip and blowing lightly on his pale face, because the previous manipulations hadn't helped. If you don't wake up now, I can't vouch for myself. Everything inside was clenched with excitement. How tired you have to be for an Uchiha to sleep so soundly but restless without feeling her presence from the first seconds. Sasuke didn't understand whether he was waking up or still sleeping, because that damn Naruto was nearby tickling his skin with her breath impermissibly close leaning over his face. No, he felt someone else's presence in his gut but couldn't tell if it was a dream or not. Because he recognized the familiar energy, stupefied and still not asleep. Sasuke called again. She pulled him by the cheeks in an attempt to interrupt his restless sleep. Reflexes worked automatically as soon as she gently pulled on the skin with a thin finger as strong hands twisted her figure so that she didn't have time to blink. As she found herself pressed to the bed and her skin throat was chilled by the blade, kunai girl stared with her big blue eyes without blinking, looking into Amethyst, smiling conciliatory. Woke up though, nervously swallowed girl, straining with her whole body, but not from the blade, which is about to cut the skin, but from the fact that Sasuke is heavy and this weight of the body tightly compressed in and out, triple, but not at all fragile, caused strange feelings, a little warm tickling concentrating Saya in a tangled ball in the area between the stomach and the heart, from which it began to sicken. What the hell did you forget here? And Sasuke was ready to cut her throat for her impudence, which brought them to a horizontal, very ambiguous position. Obsession from dream, still not asleep inside, everything is taut in a string, which is about to burst, and not to say hello already. And Uzumaki, because he is still an egoist who longs to satisfy his needs and dreams, clearly hinted at what he so much longs for, almost like the same notorious revenge Naruto nearby under him, and he feels the warmth of someone else's body with his skin to the horizontal position will not lead to anything good. And look, the nipples will break off. Tsunade-sama gave us a mission, calls to her, asked me to come for you. The girl is not guilty. She blinked her fluffy eyelashes, stretching her lips into an awkward smile, and it was a little unnerving, such closeness, nipples, especially after his strange kiss, that ostentatious jealousy, but she tried not to think about all this, protecting herself from problems. They are friends, and he just continues to go crazy because of the war, the loss of the entire family, Danzo's vile order, and many other things. Uchiha closed his eyes, trying to calm the raging blood. To feel the desired body under him is beyond his strength. Even with his eyes closed, he saw in front of him Naruto. This devil penetrated even through the eyelids, forcing to see only herself. Kunai he nevertheless removed, putting it under the pillow, but was in no hurry to get up from it, burying his nose in this very pillow, inhaling the destructive smell of light hair scattered in golden threads across the bed. Get off me! Hands rested on his torso, the girl trying to push herself strong body of a friend so far without using force to the kunai was a surprise, but so stupid. She would not let herself die, as in no way you can get through to her with such tricks from his weight. The girl began to choke, breathing became lost, became heavy and somehow ragged, and the attempt to push him caused a muffled grunt more reminiscent of horse moans. Nipples felt it, and the lower abdomen cramped from the excitement that flared up with a bright flame. This was still not enough for him, and he hurried to do what Naruto asked, until she felt with her skin and flesh his reaction to her inexorably close presence. For greater reliability, he pushed her out of bed, feeling some kind of sadist and satisfaction when the girl wanted loudly, eek nov, with a loud noise colliding with the floor, because nothing sleeping people by the cheeks in the middle of the night to pull and cause a desire for all sorts of obscenities. Naruto muttered, not expecting such a trick, hitting painfully, and the wooden floor was bony for the house, but it was impossible to be more careful. The golden-haired girl was loudly indignant, getting to her feet and rubbing her bruised butt. I'm waiting for you at Tsunade. Uzumaki muttered resentfully, and then immediately evaporated in a cloud. Shinshina, leaving Uchiha alone with his problems. Naruto was far from a stupid girl, as most considered her, unpredictable, noisy, cheerful, sometimes clumsy, yes, but not stupid at all. But in the presence of Uchiha, she felt stupid to the point of outrageous stupidity, if not even stupid, always and at all times. This did not change. He is a genius, and she is a loser. He is calculating, cold-blooded, while she long and hard looking for a way out of situations along the way, gushing emotions left and right, and all his impenetrable Gloom arrogance now and then slipping into movements and looks made her think of herself as a clumsy loser with a minimum of brains, and even now when they came to an agreement that they were equal in strength, Naruto continued to experience this burning and offensive feeling when Sasuke himself kissed the blonde under very embarrassing circumstances. It was written off to stress and lack of female attention since the last of the Uchiha clan no longer had his own fan club, and even Sakura safely forgot about her first love to reciprocate. Roku Lee, and Jubi himself will break his 10 tails trying to understand what is going on in the head of this Uchiha, well, that Avenger, and she thought that he was just making fun of her, only the humor was somehow bad, but it was all an excuse for herself. It was easier to continue communicating with Sasuke when he made her understand, perhaps against her will, that he was attracted to her as a girl. She tried painfully to forget this momentary impulse, but her lips burned from the memories, and her thoughts again and again turned to that moment, and from all these thoughts she felt terribly stupid again, plunging into this 12-year-old Sakura, although this topic of the insanely complex chemistry of love and building relationships on all this shaky, almost ephemeral soil was far from her. The blonde herself intuitively tried to figure out what was happening with the vengeful genius and what caused that incident. This did not cancel the fact that she was interested in this significantly insignificant embarrassment, and this time touching his lips was much more pleasant than in the gold and carefree times of the academy. At that time it was disgusting to accidentally exchange touches of lips, and then it was exciting, pleasant to burden, and not only with touches, but already with liquids, because Uchiha pushed his tongue into her mouth on her eyes, and after some time when Sasuke, wrapped in cloaks, moved home in a possessive manner, gave excellent ground for reasoning on the topic of Uchiha jealousy. What could prove this? That the Jinchuriki was not indifferent to him, not only as a friend but also as a girl, but in her bright head the thought was buzzing annoyingly that this was just his egoism, and it was strange because she still couldn't hold back a sly smile. Such behavior of an established friend amused her wounded pride as much as it frightened her at the same time. This whole topic with feelings and love and frightened her to the point of damn panic, because the blue-eyed woman had nothing in her that she was guided by having killed all her childhood and youth to improve her strength in an attempt to prove that Naruto Uzumaki was not a scumbag, and this played a major role, acting as an excellent stimulus, and in fact, everything she has achieved now is the merit of Uchiha Sasuke Kami-sama. No, and I will never tell her this out loud, otherwise she will become arrogant, but a worm of doubt has gnawed through her brain with a lump, settling right in the core of the gray matter, and stubbornly insists that her logic is just an attempt to disown the obvious fact, self-defense, a heart that has suffered enough because of the brunette, so to speak. Denial of the terrible truth, as Sasuke did not show that what you feel for her, so she remained calm, brushing off these annoying thoughts. Obama Renai nonsense, historically resisted the desire to look at sharing, a worthless bastard, from a different angle, in no way at a friend, to ruin their strong friendship. Wanted because of the suddenly clouded mind, nipples, and burning curiosity. What will come of it? You think some kind of kiss, so what if deep, sensual and passionate with whom it does not happen? She is a smart girl and chose an excellent tactic of behavior, preserving the former appearance of only ignoring these minor events, continuing to live and further just as she lived, only somewhat avoids the black-haired guy, but somewhere deep inside I hope that nevertheless Nipples fell in love with her, no matter how stupid it may sound, because the heart hiccups strangely from his presence, and thoughts turn again to that strange kiss. Uchiha every day understood that he was about to go off the rails. That in general was an innovation for him, even from the obsessive idea of revenge. Such a result did not happen, he just dreamed and strove for it, and here everything was different, and more difficult. Nipples never had to go amounts on a girl for her excessive closeness, and the impossibility of taking what you want, and in general when the brunette cared about the comfort of his partner. They are friends, damn it, all the screaming cheerful blonde does not look at him differently, and it makes him angry as hell, angry that soon he will grind his own teeth into dust if he constantly grinds his teeth in anger when he again and again turns The flow of thoughts to Uzumaki, but the worst thing is that on this damn mission, they will be forced to spend 3 months alone with each other, and it seems beyond his strength the mighty great Sasuke Uchiha feels his weakness next to her either. It and in downright stupid or on the contrary smart and reasonable because the rack ignores his greedy glances that he involuntarily throws in her direction. Even a blind man will notice them and continues to behave casually, innocently fluttering his eyelashes, emphasizing their friendship, casually showing him her place in their relationship, nipples, and almost on his raves about her lips, constantly studying the soft contour when she changes clothes. He, like the last pervert, peeks trying to catch a glimpse of more exposed areas of skin. It was real madness. His head from all this ached mercilessly, his own desire drives him crazy, and constantly collides with a wall where friendship is written in large hieroglyphs. Uchiha does not want to destroy this strong connection with his own hands again, which gradually heals the heart, forcing him to stay afloat and not fall into depression, no matter how pompous it may sound for his egocentric and proud nature. But he values her as a friend. Naruto filled all the emptiness in his soul from types, at the same time, a significant piece of heart and thoughts, a little more and she will completely fill it to the brim, and then he will not stand it, rushing to fill her soul and body, itself remaining blind to all Lee and protests, and Uzumaki flutters around him like a butterfly, chirps something, and smiles cheerfully, behaves so casually and innocently that you want to take and erase this damn mask from this sly face. Is she really as sly and calculating as other women? She does not try to show 100, not against such views, and does not nip them in the bud, showing all her excessive emotionality. Does she enjoy the attention to her person? Does the blonde really not see his desire and throwing, does not feel this damn spark by his touch? Yes, he has been burning next to her for a long time, sparks to the right and left. Does she really not feel the skin as he caresses her with a hard look, afraid to touch with his fingers? Sasuke Uchiha will simply break off at one fine moment. The roof will fly off and desire will flood with her head, and then he will bring her to frenzy until she bears her true feelings, and to hell with friendship. Uchiha, good, it turns out to destroy all the best and build. It is not clear what on these ruins. No, he is no longer going crazy, he has already gone losing all common sense, and when he was so imbued with all these crazy feelings for her, the black eye did not even imagine it crawled out by itself, poisoning every cell of the body. Naruto basks in hot water, throwing his head back on a folded terry towel neatly lying on a stone she has not taken a relaxing bath at the springs for a long time. The moisture on her bronze skin seductively glistens, attracts attention with a play of light drops of different sizes, constantly roll from place to place, sometimes drowning in slightly muddy water. The Uchiha does not know where to put herself, gaze every now and then turns to her bare shoulders and collarbones, lowers the edges of the water, which helpfully hides all. The most interesting Sasuke sits opposite, trying to relax, and at the same time envying and unshakable at calmness and angry that she can be so casually with him in the same bath. The devil gives. How long has she decided that men and women should be in the same bathhouse? This damn Uzumaki, as always, does not shine with intelligence. This devil will drive him crazy. She came then almost naked, wrapped in a towel, and behind a wide smile and casual chatter, and plunged into the water, settling down comfortably, taking out a wet towel from under the water, throwing the already useless thing onto the lawn. And why the hell he still hasn't released his tension in the nearest brothel, or even in a cafe or hotel, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that there is a girl nearby, satisfying all his desires. No matter how you twist, the nipples are handsome, and individuals of the opposite sex themselves often flock to him like flies to jam, trying to seduce. And Naruto cheerfully teased him, and that the fan club is being revived. Sometimes the clan is revived, and she doesn't mind if he doesn't spend the night in their room. Sasuke, why do you avoid girls? How? She read his thoughts, started a conversation about his personal life outside the village they are coming to. You like this or nude? Uzumaki raised her head, opening one eye, closely watching the Uchiha and crackling with the mask of his vaunted composure. So maybe a conversation will distract him from his gloomy thoughts. Or are you Now with us for boys, and apparently the girl asked, slyly smiling. Mind your own business, the brunette hissed angrily, trying to concentrate on the starry sky they appeared from the water. The hollow between her breasts means for boys, the blonde summed up. Having made her own conclusions, this is for the sake of angering the carrier of the Sharingan, this is her hobby. After all, to piss off the genius Uchiha, again plunging into the water, and throwing her head back on an improvised pillow, Naruto continued in the same way, sarcastically stretching lips in a smile. Is it really that he changed his orientation at Orochimaru? And no nonsense, she still remembers that fleeting hot kisses of jealousy, and a second had not passed as she immediately felt the presence of a pacifier very close to her. Such speed even managed not to shake the water in an instant, erasing the smug expression from the face of the blue-eyed to prove to you that it is not for boys. Scarlet spots of anger clouded her eyes. Where is there any logic in this girl? And this statement made him so angry that he intended to prove the opposite right here and now, especially since his hands had been itching for a long time. And not only them, even if you are my friend, this does not cancel the fact that you are a girl of a very attractive appearance. The guy pressed himself more tightly to the body of his teammates so that she could feel with her skin that everything is in order. With his orientation cooled down, Uzumaki perked up in horror. Recoiled to the side. The girl did not expect such tea and frank courage of a friend when she felt his answer. With her hip brain clung to this friend with a little, but she likes Uchiha. The world is going crazy. Maybe she didn't hear my answer. Uchiha grabbed then by the hands pulled towards himself. And when the girl slightly and the bottom returned into the water up to the very top of her head, he grabbed the blonde under the buttocks, sitting her on his hips with some wild pleasure, reveling in the weight of her body and trying to look her in the eyes. They are on the obviously exposed more than enough chest. Have you completely gone crazy, or what? Where to put yourself she didn't know, blushing with embarrassment from her heels to the tips of her hair. Now the answer to her question rested against the inside of her thigh, somewhat unnerved, and with its annoying pulsation, it all suddenly so frightened and embarrassed. Stop provoking and driving crazy, Uchiha coldly notices, intercepting wrists for reliability. In case of anything, they will destroy this onsen to hell and back, or even the whole village by force. They have enough than this. I provoke you to get up his knee. She tried with all her might. Okay, almost with all of herself, the brunette answered, unable to restrain himself. He was tired of just watching and listening. He wants to give more and more to his needs and desires, and perhaps a hint of feelings he already almost needs it as well as air. Uchiha, you are sick. His words stunned she. Drives a cold-blooded, unwavering, almost insensitive avenger the amount. No. He is really crazy. He has a fever illness, and he is just delirious. It can't be like that. Or the blue-eyed one even tried to put her hand to his forehead, but the brunette did not loosen his grip, not allowing her to make this gesture, to try to catch him in poor health. Yes, with you. He looked straight into her eyes. I am trying to understand how this sunny blonde will react to all this, because there was not that storm of feelings as usual. Only restrained lines, weak attempts to break free, to convict him of feeble-mindedness. No. Darling, even I can't convict myself of feeble-mindedness. Naruto narrowed her eyes. Peering into his face still, there were still signs that Sasuke had been struck by the loss of common sense and was sick with at least schizophrenia. You've gone crazy. A heavy convulsive sigh, and a statement of fact escaped her lips. Okay, there, a kiss. Jealousy, but openly showing your desire in this way is already too much. Yes, short and hard in the Uchiha style, and the blackness of his eyes is clouded by a strange moisture, and his lips for some reason stretch into a strange smile. Uzumaki even recoiled for a moment, frightened by the fire that was burning inside him, afraid that the flames would spread to her too. My friend is called a pervert. That's who you are, and you're definitely sick there. You're harming. How? She recoiled back, Nora looking away, feverishly thinking how to get out of the captivity of his hands with minimal consequences for this hot spring. Find yourself already, Babu hissed angrily, and the blonde, seeing that Sasuke was reaching out to her, she disappeared right at the moment when their lips were supposed to meet in a kiss with the help of the recently learned Hiroshi Na. And in general, who is this Uchiha for? But you accept, but Your heart beats faster and thoughts turn to the fact that she would not mind trying to build a relationship with Sasuke. Just not in this way, Uzumaki, Uchiha hissed angrily through clenched teeth. Dreaming of destroying everything here to hell, he could have alienated her from himself with his crazy intemperance. And so he broke a lot of firewood and then he showed his desire how sometimes this blonde pisses him off. Adobe first provokes and then runs away. Fuck these women, you will understand. Bot voiced freak. They changed roles, missed that fateful night. Naruto ran away. Nipples caught up before it was the other way around, and he was so used to it that the blonde always strives to catch up with him to return, and now she runs away. That's the irony. They changed roles and Sasuke, it angered Uchiha, came into a furious rage from the flow of Uzumaki to avoid him hiding in the corners. Looked funny for Kunoichi and Level, but he was not laughing. The brunette, gritting his teeth, pulled her out from around the corner, almost by the scruff of the neck, and dragged her by force. The next city, the blue-eyed girl broke free, kicked, hissed, scratched, but time after time broke free from a strong grip, lifted her chin, and with a proud gait looking away walked nearby, keeping silent, which was atypical for her. Nipples cursed. That very moment, when under the yoke of primitive instincts, her composure cracked and he was blown away the roof, and he confessed to the girl that he felt a magnetic attraction to her, or rather to her body, and that was what drove him crazy. That's what scared Uzumaki. The girl wrapped herself tighter in a black cloak, covering her blushing face with a collar. Every now and then, the stand glanced sideways at her friend's partner. Still trying to find signs of dementia, they urgently needed to talk, the notorious ones, and but all the confidence in this, Kayla, rapidly and mercilessly under the gaze of an amethyst eye, sliding her gaze over her aching cheeks, and the girl felt like an eternity, tormented and blushing. Hinata near the object, and sighing, but only when landing. She didn't sigh with dreamy intonations, and all this went on for 2 weeks. She ran away, he caught the conversation, and it didn't stick. No matter how hard they both tried, Nipples simply didn't know how to talk much and express their feelings in words, and Naruto simply didn't know how to start a conversation. The tension between them grew, sparkled, and pressed on the young minds, and that's all got angry Nipples so that he could not restrain himself, and once again with a firm gait headed towards the golden-haired one training alone. This expectedly ran away, flashing her heels, and light tails. Goodbye. Naruto broke loose. She understood when a strong body pressed her against the wall, catching up in her hotel room in which they rented housing. Don't even try. Evil flashed his eyes, the last of the Uchiha, trying to reduce her attempts to escape to nothing. The body pressed against the wall actively resisted. Let go the blonde sword, breathing heavily, feeling how it begins to irritate. Actually, and a hopeless situation, and arrogant faces. Nipples, glowing with superiority, really can't cope. This bastard suppresses her chakra with his own. She began to spit, so that for some time back Uchiha, with his own hands, and not only created a gap between them, otherwise I can't vouch for myself, spat. I'll give Naruto, but it looked like harmless threats. Amiko snake, what scares you? He is stronger. In Zimaidia, into the wall, feeling how hard the chest rises from the pressure exerted. You are sick. The blonde sticks out, turning away from the nipple because his face is so close, and black eyes draw into their black and bottomless pool. Stop, tired sighs Uchiha, pressing her forehead to the girl's temple, closing her eyes, and noisily inhaling the pleasant floral scent with her nose. Naruto somehow twitched strangely and froze. I would like to think that in surprise and humility. That in a hoarse voice, because breathing all this jelly, and harder, and not because Sasuke almost pressed her into the wall, but because of what feelings his hot even breath on the cheek evokes. Avoid me calmly, gives out Uchiha, noticing the rapid pulse, their hoarseness in the voice of teammates. Do not avoid you. A blatant lie flies off the lips before Uzumaki thought, but then she realized that her words sounded ridiculously stupid, and she would deceive only, and who would she deceive at all this, and ridiculously implausible lie here. Sasuke grinned so barely noticeably. Just accept, and the fact that I like you, lowering his voice, to pronounce nipples weakening the pressure, and that girl, and look, will stop breathing. Look how she suffocates from The fact that fell on her, and everything will fall into place. He accepted this fact a few days ago, and it became a little easier. At least he figured out himself. You scare me, honestly admitted Uzumaki. At first, she was flattered by the attention of the Uchiha, and she simply enjoyed his sidelong glances and fleeting sparkling feelings in the depths of these black pupils, rejoicing that this avenger is not so cold, but more directly. What should I do with this? Not this, she expected. At all, not this running away repulsive nipples, more familiar and arranged this alignment of events, because all her attention was concentrated on catching Shake and put on the path of truth, and then naturally pull that out of the clutches of loneliness it distracted from her own feelings, in which for some time she began to dig deeper and deeper, finding more and more new sides of the nipple. For example, finally saw the light and realized that this burning brunette with thin aristocratic features is very attractive, and how he kisses. But here is another plus found to the image of a friend to enjoy. Not at all, gently and carefully grabbing her by the chin, he turned her to face him, looking into the crystal blue of the eyes where continuous doubts splashed. The girl convulsively swallowed, looking into the dark eyes and immediately losing herself in the whirlpool of feelings. Nipples, and then under the pressure of demanding lips, knocking out all thoughts. Like a blow of a sledgehammer, her heart beats loudly, even too loudly. This annoying, absurd knock drowns out the noise around them. Nipples clearly hear how this long-suffering muscles in a crazy rhythm beats the ribcage of the blue-eyed, trying to break through the ribs, and most likely fall at the feet of the brunette. Why? Because the heat quickly spreads in waves from his lips, absorbing under her skin and mixing with her own, so that a fire flares up inside from the collision. It seems the heart against her will accepted defeat in this fight, and obediently recognized Uchiha Sasuke as the winner. Yes, this all looks like a hint that all this time she simply did not understand that she was in love with this slightly human block of ice. Look how loudly hints. Yes, what is there already screaming about it? Loudly runs, and the blood in the veins boils, knocking like an alarm in the temples, making noise with the sound of the surf in the ears of the Uchiha, with only her lips greedily replacing her own to do wonders with her circulatory system. Her own body stops obeying, and similarly, whether the same trembling and soft in the strong hands of her partner in such a simple way, surrendering under the pressure of the black-eyed brunette, to the spite of her own remnants of reason, which still shudders and attempts to resist, but to resist with each dull touch, there is neither the strength nor the desire. Closing her amazed eyes, the girl responds to the obsessive caress, drowning with her head in a whirlpool of her own and other people's feelings. She will think about the sincerity of the nipples later, and now Naruto will be stunned by the beating of her own heart to hug and selflessly kiss the Uchiha when thin arms wrap around his neck, pulling him closer, and sweet wet lips reciprocate, and it becomes loud in his head and his heart in his ears. The former avenger no longer catches the threads of reality, plunging into his fantasies with his head with a light feed from his teammates, and he is ready to drown in it, in this sea of pleasure, endlessly under the thunderous knocks, and his heart. This is fate, the girl quietly whispers, basking in warm embraces, and counting the beats of his heart. You don't believe in it, as I remember, notices nipples fingering golden hide and seek, enjoying the silkiness of hair. Don't forget our lives are written whether we want it or not. The war proved it to us, the girl quietly whispers, a feeling of bitterness in the soul from memories. Perhaps the Uchiha does not argue, realizing that arguing with her is useless. It will find such arguments with its logical illogicality that victory in this verbal duel will remain hers. It seems you and I will have to go hand in hand all our lives somehow. Affectionately, the kunoichi smiles, sliding her fingers along her ribs gently and weightlessly touching her alabaster skin. The Uchiha intercepts the girl's hand, unable to withstand the sweet onslaught of affection. He tries to let Naruto get used to his feelings. First of all, she must realize what she herself is experiencing, and the Uchiha can wait a little, especially since they have already discussed everything. She also drives him crazy, only much more because now he can touch her, hug, kiss, but he, like an insatiable beast, cannot be content with this. He needs more. Naruto Uzumaki, he needs both soul and body all Without a trace, and only his every touch of her causes a shiver intersecting with tension in the very bottom of the abdomen, which intertwines with a ball of his inadequate sympathy for her. In an instant it becomes incredibly hot. Everything is very even. Possible nipples, gently kisses, intercepted thin fingers, sometimes hinting with his lips that he wants more, and much more, mature clasping fingers with his mouth, so that Naruto shudders every now and then, breaks into ragged breathing, hiding his crimson cheeks on his chest. Sasuke, stop, you're embarrassing me, the blonde grumbles again, shuddering with her whole body. When another finger, and the second phalanx, ends up in the hot moisture of someone else's mouth and the tongue playfully slides over the skin, it drives him crazy. Stop chatting. In vain, he stops, freeing a thin hand that Uzumaki immediately removes, hiding under a thin blanket. If he continued, there was a high probability that his mind would capitulate under the pressure of ragged breathing. The golden-haired man is very noticeable, the yeast of a fragile body. But look at yourself, we ended up on the same team, we went through a real hell together, we survived it only thanks to each other, and it also turned out that only the two of us can free the world from universal evil. Uzumaki expressed chaotic thoughts that were interrupted and confused every now and then by touching the nipple. It took a lot of effort to express the sore point, but she was still able to convey the essence of her thoughts. H&M and Sasuke still thought about what Naruto was saying, beginning to understand that most likely it was so, and they would belong to each other, by the will of fate, and then by their own free will. How they went into a horizontal position, no one remembers. They just ended up in the same room and in the same bed. They were more concerned about how they reacted to each other. Naruto learned to kiss him so that from one touch it became insanely good from 2 touches. The mind capitulated, and when the tongue also came into play, the Uchiha melted like wax in a fire, experiencing real pleasure. Falling headlong into these feelings, he did not expect at all from Uzumaki that this Dabi could so easily drive you crazy. How in principle is that it would be so crazy emotionally react to her. Naruto similarly did not imagine that Sasuke could be so hot. She was so used to banging her head against his ice wall that sometimes she was ready to give up, but now another side of the unapproachable Uchiha was revealed to her. She liked it when there was no hint of clothing left on them. They also did not particularly notice there was a feeling that it should be like this, and all this is so ordinary and familiar. Whether it be Veneno Day, undress each other for a while, as a training 100 times. Nipples for a moment was glad that the blonde in his arms did not resist, but only helped him pull off his clothes, ready for the consequences of their sudden horizontal position. People was embarrassed for a moment, a short, ghostly moment, but when such affectionate and gentle hands covered her naked chest, she lost all connection with reality, instantly choking from acute pleasure. Piercing Shiva all bodies with a powerful electric discharge, and everything again fell into place, or rather lay in a horizontal plane. She trusted Uchiha, believed in him, always taking his side in all situations, and allowed him do whatever he wants, because a person who can kiss so hotly, hug tightly, look at her with a look of complete adoration, cannot hurt or harm in any way. When the Uchiha's hands were below the waist, there was not even a desire to bring her legs together in an attempt to stop. Ashamed not only of the frankness of what was happening, wet, shiny and burning with hellish flames, but also frightening from the first intimacy, Naruto was too fearless. As it turned out, even in this regard, nipples are greedy to madness, as well as insatiable. Growing moans caress the ear. The girl beneath him arches, exposing herself to the pleasure that his strong and skillful hands give. The blonde rushes about the bed, shifting and gathering the already hot sheet under herself, then pulling his hair, then digging her nails into the bed linen. Does not know where to put her hands, and intercepting her wrist, her healthy hand is directed in such a desired direction. Not only should she lie and relax, drowning in bliss, the Uchiha growls dully when her fragile palm squeezes, presses, slides down, then up. Jinchuriki quickly accepts the rules of the game, getting a taste, pushing him closer to the abyss where such desired satisfaction awaits him. Brunette is harsh and Rude, but Naruto doesn't mind. She also manages to swing her hips until she bleeds. Either her own or the brunette's lips, only further inflaming the passion that has arisen between them. Throat itches and hurts from loud inflatable moans. Finger-tight hot Naruto flows in ecstasy, shuddering with his whole body. Sasuke doesn't even allow her to catch her breath, too wide and vulgar. Spreading her legs without any hassle, do not care about the girl's feelings, entering with one jerk the entire length. She did not scream, did not sob, did not clamp up when the Uchiha in his heartless manner took her innocence from her, only froze for a moment, holding her breath, hugging the guy's tass with her legs pressing only harder. She is a shinobi, or who to cry here, sobbing from pain, tearing the lower abdomen. It has happened, and worse, and this is so, almost a mosquito bite. Opening his eyes wide and manage to understand that she is uncomfortable only by clarifying. She musea the look of blue eyes, while he is fooling, only stronger from the damp tightness, tightly embracing his nature. In the depths of black pupils, he sees echoes of pain and promises that she will definitely remember him. This embarrassment and his pathological egoism will definitely come back to haunt the Uchiha. Presses her into the mattress harder until the springs dig into the woman's back. Hands again slide over her graceful and wet body, linger on her chest. Shamelessly press. I again play with the most sensual areas, and again the crystal blue is darker. The wire tightens, and desire. Naruto again forgets how to breathe, stops fidgeting, trying to reduce the feeling of discomfort to nothing and bring his now former friend to frenzy. Nipples. Leans over her, biting into artificial swollen lips the color of ripe cherries. For the first time in all the time that they last not to relationship, he kisses her tenderly, and this extreme careful caress drives her crazy more than frank ones, causing only heat in the body. All attention switches to his lips, to the fact that her soul also became warm, and she hides in these soft and uncontrollably affectionate touches of someone else's lips, losing herself again and again. The first push she even ignored, drowning in a kiss. The second and third already tore her from the embrace of a trembling and aching feeling, slowly pushing her into that abyss on the edge of which Uchiha stands. Tenderness. Fifth disappeared without a trace, giving way to furiously and passions, and other people's lips are already kissing her neck, biting into the skin until crimson hickeys. Seventh, she loses count, giving in to the flow, allowing her nipples to do what he pleases, again pliantly pressing her chest to the brunette's broad chest, and then everything merges into something crazy, enchanting, and honestly she did not hear her own screams or the dull growl of her nipple when her lower abdomen cramped from the highest pleasure, and inside everything shrank to the size of an atom, so that then that same big explosion would occur. She went limp in his arms, trying to even out her breathing, choking on air, because her lungs were burning and her throat was torn from deep. Even breath's thin fingers were still digging into his back with their nails. She did not expect that it could be so good from such vulgar and obscene intimacy. All this to her, it seemed inflated and to the point of ugliness. Multiplication of farce. This manifestation of love caused some kind of disgust or something, but now Naruto felt on his own skin that everything is not so bad, and books do not lie sometimes, and on the lower one could grumble. The girl pushing away from herself Uchiha, she remembered how he shamelessly took her virginity, not caring at all about her feelings. No answers. Nipples squatting on the bed, and finally consider more or less sober look. Naked body. Former teammates. Topic sticks out. Girl taking a vertical position, getting out of bed, and goes to the shower to wash off foreign smells and liquids. Toby Uchiha follows in an instant, finds himself next to the girl and literally pushes her into the bath, and immediately presses her to the cold tiled wall. Beauty licks dry lips in an instant, feeling how again blood rushes not at all to the brain. Tanned skin from a sharp contrast is covered with large goosebumps, but most of all attracts attention. Breasts, and wants try with his tongue, which he hurries to do, but the discontent does not break out. Sorts frozen in a lump somewhere in the throat because someone else's mouth again and follows her body, salty from sweat, having chosen the object for torment. Breasts and Sasuke. Selflessly. You are whole. You how tender skin, intending to try now in a vertical position. Uzumaki. Naruto could not even imagine that everything would be so bad. Well, how bad this concept is relative. Regarding Uchiha Sasuke, it's just that he turned out to be very hot, passionate, insatiable, immensely selfish, and as an alpha male translated almost any situation into a horizontal plane, Naruto knew very well what intense training is and what condition happens after them, and was incredibly surprised when after a day off which they had in this mission, she will not be able to walk or sit but only lie and tremble. Sasuke was a girl lying in bed, trying to bring her legs trembling from tension. But behind the tree there are no lice, and the muscles could not be controlled. You are a monster, but the blonde could not imagine that when they will cross all conceivable and inconceivable boundaries, and the Uchiha will have their hands untied, then everything will be so H&M problematic. The weakling grins good-naturedly. The brunette pulls the girl towards him and buries his nose in golden tangled hair. For the first time in a long time he struck and by the fact that in the literal sense of the word he loved almost to death. How many times he tried to kill her. Fingers on his hands and feet are not enough to count the attempts and promises, but nothing worked out for the prodigal avenger, and now when everything was more than fine with them, she lay in his strong arms, choking, clutching for the heart that was ready to stop from pleasure and muscles, and to withstood such a frantic pace. Damn, yes. She is a kind of shinobi hardened by war and little can scare in training. What kind of bath complexity was not, she has not bent over so much from fatigue and stress for a long time, and Sasuke, this lustful Uchiha, brought her down to earth and even lower, showing that she is not so hardy. Go, you do not even have the strength to object and argue. Naruto quietly groans, trying to bend and straighten his legs, but feels only long-forgotten pain in the muscles, and Uchiha smugly grins. Let's repeat. Hands and Italy sank to the thigh, gently stroking the skin of the inner side. The brunette does not stop smiling, feeling how the blonde tensed up sharply and tried to free herself from the captivity of his embrace. Uzumaki sharply raised his own self-esteem and sense of dignity to unprecedented heights. Get away from me, Uchiha. The matter was heard badly, but the voice was in place, and no matter how she tore it off, it still remained loud, and her raised tone rang in her ears. The damn egoist thought about me. The girl soared. She fluttered helplessly in her strong muscular arms. An excellent training. The Uchiha is frankly cheerful, and he shows it to Naruto, with a note. He doesn't care about the manifestations of his feelings. She is trying to break free, to escape from an overly loving shinobi. I've seen such training, and the date is B. Uzumaki protests, falling from a narrow bed, freeing himself and ignoring the brunette's grin. His nipples are almost glowing from the smugness that overwhelms him. The fucking narcissist. The girl hurries to crawl away towards the bathroom. Her legs still didn't obey, and her muscles trembled, but she didn't think, agreeing to the proximity of the nipple, that everything would be like this. Yes, it's better that she will spend a month on the mountain. Miyaboku will share a meal with toads than to arrange such marathons when her body at least, and in a very pleasant way. But they torture, so that for the first time in all this time you want to die from fatigue. At least you will get used to it soon. The Uchiha gets out of bed and catches up with the girl in 2 wide steps, takes her in his arms, and puts her on the bed. Yes, don't twitch, you do that, Dobby. I'm tired too. He stops trying to resist no matter how you twist it, but he is also a person not really and omnipotent. He also needs rest and the desire that has not subsided, yet he will have time to satisfy more than once, because Naruto Uzumaki now, and his Uzumaki is heavy and furious, and breathes sparkling orange eyes with a vertical pupil, and gushes golden orange chakra cube, and desires to wipe him into powder because of the universal size of the insult. She was offended to the depths of her soul. The Uchiha grins evilly, wrapping her body purple sun, and waits another attack, tensely measuring. Did not expect that it was so easy to get her angry. Even before this had not happened, and here immediately to radical measures. Both understand that they categorically do not know how to solve problems peacefully. What does the modified wasteland landscape indicate? They have adjusted here. Notably, Naruto stop orders rudely, and loudly nipples, realizing that if this continues further, then they will leave no stone unturned. At best, at worst, Senju will have to grow them. New prostheses if of course they survive without the help of Sakura after their final technique. She did not like my soup ignores reminds the reason for the spar. Clenching fists were searched, how it touches her right to the point of a pinching feeling in her heart and angry tears in her eyes. She herself tried it. You know it looks as if you were trying to send me away, indifferently concludes Uchiha, telling the truth. And only the truth, as always, rudely, not at all afraid of the anger of a friend he is. Not afraid of such. Naruto gets even more angry, but is silent. It is obvious, and the truth is not tried, but is in no hurry to change his anger to mercy. Admitting her mistake, also came up with the idea of feeding him the devil with something. Without even trying. I would have tried. This would not have happened. You see, you haven't even tried, and now you won't try. Nipples are still being pulled out of hair-boiled vegetables and herbs. The girl boiled in a matter of seconds. She took and turned his head inside out. The whole pot of this poison, by mistake called soup. You offended me, crossed her arms and pouted her lips offendedly, continuing to pout at the latter, having studied but still slowly cooling down what the brunette sincerely does not understand how many times he offended her. The reaction was different, exclusively verbal diarrhea, and to the point of colic. Funny promises to punch his face, and you want to say you were offended that I did not poison myself with your brew. The idiot grumbles, and turns away, but the golden cover of the budget regime, it is cooling down. You could have said more gently that it was not tasty. And you are immediately poison like heart's blonde, turning away from the pacifier to hide angry tears of resentment. For the first time he hurt her so much. A rude assessment of her culinary abilities cut right to the quick, and everything inside was painfully compressed from this damn resentment at herself. Look, because of some Sue tried to kill me. Uchiha, taking off the shroud Susanna, and deactivates the Sharingan. Approaching the angry girlfriend, carefully touching her shoulder deep inside, fearing that the girl will split again and again, will have to fight with her, or demonstratively shake off his hands, starting to ignore. In fact, if she starts to ignore him, he will go crazy. So it's good that she didn't think of it before, otherwise it would have been lousy at times. I cooked it for you, and you're an idiot, no, to put it mildly, exclaims, and her voice suspiciously trembles in her pose, and the tension shines through, but her hands do not throw off his, allowing herself to be touched. Come on, you will not cook anymore? Honestly asks Nipples, remembering that garbage taste of soup from Naruto, which immediately rolls his mask of unshakable calm. For a long time Uchiha, from spat, feeling how sick, and his face is probably green. It was exactly this that allowed the girls to imperceptibly fly out on him out of anger, all the contents of the pot, and then immediately enter combat mode to take out her resentment on him. I tried with all my love for you. Cooked presses on the feeling of guilt. Nipples, suspecting the presence of such a curiosity in the soul of the Avenger David, successfully, because from this phrase the nipples twitch. She feels how his hand trembled, resting on her shoulder, hit the bull's eye. Uchiha is stunned worse than I am. Her final one, Sangana, at that ill-fated moment of their duel. These words stick right in, piercing him through the heart with an arrow, knocking all the oxygen out of his lungs for a moment, making him choke. Accurate fight on the spot blow. For him, Naruto loves him. He understood her words correctly, but is in no hurry to ask. Wanted to please you. Resentment begins to slowly retreat. This pompous and arrogant egoist does not know how to be tolerant and polite with her. It was always like this. It was stupid, especially since the soup smelled not very good but tolerable. She just hoped that it was tasty, and she herself did not risk trying, admitting in advance her hopelessness in cooking. You are right, he was terrible. Backtracks, and stops pretending to be a deeply insulted and offended girl. Relaxes, remembering that if they kiss and sleep together, it does not mean that he will behave differently towards her. No, a lot has changed, but here are some things you sneeze will never change. For example, his ZM with love spinning in the brain of the black-eyed, and his soul became so warm and light, and not a drop of it. The reservation does not frighten, what is hidden behind it only warms and pleases. She tried for him with love as always, whether he liked it or not, just stubbornly tried to make him feel good, even if it was mortally dangerous. That's all. Naruto, don't make me so happy, otherwise you will Please me to the point of a fatal attack. Thaw's nipples and lips themselves spread into a smile. Hugs tightly burying his nose. Golden curls are better just being nearby and do what you do. Usually no need for experiments. Asks for nipples extremely softly, afraid to offend the girl again, but feeling how thin hands hugged him in response, relaxed, realizing that the conflict was exhausted. Well, agrees. Blue-eyed, tiredly closing her eyes. Their first scandals and exhausted, and now in warm and familiar embraces, wanted to fall asleep too, and happily she was that there is no need to go out of her way to please his nipples, and so everything suits. And scandals, they really can be dangerous, not only for others, but also for themselves, to whom she said, "Step aside, evil." Naruto grits through his teeth, trying to incinerate Uchiha, with a look to no avail. He only curls his lips in a contemptuous grin. That's always how she tries to be ahead of him, to seem better and stronger. She is bursting with feelings, as always, and rushes into battle headlong, because they touched her dignity and tried to kill. The full nipples boils slowly and methodically. This stubborn girl decided to protect him, although they attacked her, and all his attempts to protect her were sent far, and for a long time on foot. Erotic, he could not even imagine that she could speak so dirty. The enemy stood aside, somewhat embarrassed. They have been trying to decide for 5 minutes who will be on him. Attack in an attempt to kill. Good tone lowered, or not good now. Can't hear what they're talking about. It seems this is the first time enemy shinobi got carried away 40 each other during a fight, trying to decide who will attack him, forgetting that a mortal threat is breathing down their necks. I myself push the formidable and insanely gloomy former Avenger aside, not paying attention to the fact that a complex pattern of the Manjikyu Sharingan flared in his eyes. Probably only she can push him aside with such ease, and the article itself imperturbability when Sasuke is just oozing with black and sharp threat. Stand aside, grabs her by the shoulder and pulls her back. Old shield her with herself, an enemy ninja who is not much inferior in strength to the Kage. I'm doomed. Grits his teeth and immediately folds seals to attack, but Sasuke doesn't give a damn. His agenda is taming the stubborn girl who would just recklessly scratch her fists on something. Removed his hand, tries to burn with kurama caviar, but Uchiha's hand is immediately covered with Susanna's shroud. The attempt failed, and not only her shroud protected them from the enemy attack, he didn't even turn his head. The attacker notices when his attack bounced off the strange purple shroud. I'm like peas against the wall. Move away. He worries about this fool. In his own way, imperceptibly, and secretly somewhat rudely and unprincipled, because she always goes ahead, can expose herself to attack in order to win, and the guy is not happy with this lately. He is not happy at all that she can be wounded in battle, and in general got into this very battle. He knows her style is as uncouth and reckless as on Don't Anger Me. Uchiha grins like a wild animal bearing fangs, but the number on intimidation fails. Nipples, this is not scare, and the blonde clenches her fists, trying to suppress the wave of rage and also the sight of a pacifier. Everything she does will be in vain. Well, if only she tries to tear off some limb, maybe it will have an effect, but then the surrounding area will change the landscape, and that impudent guy will be ground to dust. Honestly, she doesn't care. That's what he needs. 0s, and the village on its edges has nothing to do with it, but the animals in this very forest, and then they smashed almost to dust the valley of completion. Hey, the enemy is trying to attract the attention of the arguing shinobi, but all to no avail. Any attack is reflected without looking, either with a purple cover or with a golden one. Basically, they have already forgotten about him. This, you don't make me angry, Uzumaki, but his ki wave is not inferior to her own. None of them even bat an eyelid when the enemy froze, shuddered, and involuntarily took a step back under the onslaught of the most powerful waves of heavy, frightening auras, having ridden like sandpaper and on the nerves. You know I recover quickly, so don't brag about your fast regeneration. The golden-haired girl tries to hold the man's hand off her shoulder, but Sasuke only bites into the bony shoulder until it bruises. I don't want you to get hurt. Acts differently, speaks more easily, and in the eyes of the desire to protect him, his guesses were confirmed. This is somewhat funny in principle, and it should make her laugh. An attempt to keep her out of the fight. They both confronted the most deadly dangerous creature on the whole earth and survived in order to then try to kill each other. Nipples clenches teeth, look at her, not at all amazed, and inside it spills out sweet viscous for such warmth, so maybe only she just stand aside, and he can't say that he is worried, that he is afraid that she might get hurt, that it will hurt. Lacks fortitude. He has always been weak in spirit, and it is hard even for himself to admit his weaknesses. Not only for her, but Naruto has become his weakness. No, it has always been his weak spot, it is just that now the circumstances are different. One can only hope that her brain sometimes works, and she will understand his desire and aspiration, so is always understood at the level of the heart of intuition. I will figure it out myself. The enemy is on the sidelines, angry, puffing and thinking up how to attract attention, offended by the fact that they forgot about him, but I choke on the unspoken words stuck in my throat. The girl closes her eyes, thinks about something for 10 seconds, frowning, and then still lifts the corners of her lips into ghosts of a smile. Okay, it seems when she finally gets a chance to be the girl that they so zealously strive to protect. She knows, or wants to think so, because this is an attempt to protect. They measure strength. Who is tougher with his heart? The Uchiha also looks emotionless, cold. There was no emotion on his face. How quickly he pulled himself together and put on his favorite mask of a cold-blooded bastard. Nipples let go of her shoulder and turned his back to her, facing the enemy. Naruto relaxed, but not completely. You never know. The enemy swallowed nervously, because the evil Uchiha trying to protect what is dear to him is still a shock that even his knees are shaking. The death of the enemy shinobi was long and painful, because there was no need to attack Naruto from behind and poke her in the ribs with all sorts of iron, almost up to the handle. Nipples. This really did not please him 100 times more than Naruto herself. He knows that the forest will not let her be offended, but he should not be written off either. They returned to the village ahead of schedule, and did not care at all about how they would fight off curious friends and comrades who stared at them with bulging eyes, straight burning their intertwined fingers with curious glances, and Sasuke and Naruto casually cut through the village in no hurry, holding hands, and it was already automatic. For 3 weeks of their relationship, for them all this had become commonplace, and they did not try to hide anything, but they did not think about what a furor the fact of their relationship could cause. Sasuke and Naruto absolutely did not think through this moment, and they had to face people who were freaking out, half of whom had their jaws dropping, but it was too late to shy away from each other with faces full of hostility towards each other. It was so late that they were already squeezing each other's hands in an encouraging gesture, and then Konoha shuddered from a powerful stream of rumors about the relationship between the former criminal and the heroine of the war, and by the evening this news was overgrown with such a heap of invented details that even the ear and hair stood on end after the residence and the submission of the report to Hatake, Kakashi, and now the 6th Hokage, who took the post of head of the village, while they wandered around the country's erasing loopholes for revival as you, and they said goodbye to each other dryly. We went our separate ways. If it weren't for them, they had just paraded through Konoha hand in hand, radiating a persistent aura of misunderstanding, as always pretended to be a fool in the case of Naruto, and indifference in the case of Nipples, which is also very typical for a representative of the Uchiha clan people, and didn't have time to get out of the shower, having changed into her favorite orange tracksuit as the door shook from a knock, and a moment later, without waiting for permission, knocking, Shihisa brazenly burst into a small one-room apartment. Uzumaki, and the blonde, was glad that her door was not damaged, and judging by those who entered, there was a possibility that they could have knocked her out to hell. Gifted, and now the walls shook because her numerous and excellent friends, headed by Sakura Ino at the first, and burst into the doorway. Hand's glass chime rustled. Package. Haruno nevertheless gained experience from Tsunade, not only in terms of medicine, but also bad habits. Tell jumped on the spot, and Monako and Naruto stared at this whole motley crowd with the look of a hunted hare. Nervously trembled. Rumors spread too quickly, and the closest friends, already fully armed, came to her without an invitation, poking their curious noses. Would be her affairs of the heart. This was alien to Uzumaki, but to drive out these Harpies did not seem possible firstly, no matter how you twist it, but she loved and respected them, and secondly, would shudder, not Naruto's apartment, but Konoha in general. The heroine, and to cope with a crowd of determined friends, the task is worse than the fight with Madara and Sasuke can develop. Sakura Naruto would be indignant, but only it would not help anyway. They would burst into her cozy apartment and gutted her soul, at least how long ago Temari was already in charge in the kitchen unpacking takeaway food from the cafe, and Naruto was quietly and peacefully freaking out and choking with indignation silently that it was not typical. This was so unexpected. Hinata approached the blonde, handing her a bag from Ichiraku with her favorite ramen. Naruto froze, smelling her favorite smell, and looked at her with gratitude, not even suspecting that it was from bathing her abuse that was laid on all counts. You already meaningfully played with her eyebrows. Tintin, and from the south, immediately blushed like a tomato, and Naruto and echoed, answering the question asked with her embarrassment. Sasuke, and her, and held Karen, who the courts dragged by force, like a relative, needs to be congratulated, and no one cared that it was Uzumaki going crazy about the unapproachable brunette, save whispered Trey, blue-eyed, doomed, looking around the apartment with a hunted look. You are so reigning here. Disorder added chaos. Relax. Sakura slipped a glass with a transparent liquid, and Naruto, without looking, drank the liquid in one gulp, in three large, smoothly, belatedly noticing the cunning little devil's plush in the depths of green eyes, as well as the strange burning taste of water. Not water. You are mocking. The girl coughed from the fire, tearing her throat, throwing away the glass, and grabbing her throat, burning from the inside. Drink. Yes, she had never taken a drop of sake in her life. There was no time while she was saving the world, and also a look full and sincere misunderstanding where so much interest in her personal life floated. Alcohol on an empty stomach acted quickly on the world. She looked already with a cloudy look and more relaxed. Sakura chuckled with satisfaction, and in these couple of hours this news has become overgrown with such details, and but helped Sandy lay out the snack. We want to know the truth firsthand. 10:10 and Hinata grabbed the owner of the apartment by her white arms while she was like this. Cuter, continuing to stand like a pillar in the middle of the apartment, sat her down at the table, and then Naruto began. Peony more and more understood that good friends are cool. These beasts opened her eyes to many things, shared personal experience, and when the degree of alcohol reached a critical point, then she gave everything out, as if in confession. Serve, and the left glances of friends, blushing cheeks of Hinata, a satisfied smile, the foam envious howl of Karen. Well, and in the end, having listened again under blushing cheeks of Hinata, and doomed to her Karen some intimate details of the personal life of some girls, and in principle, having listened to a lecture about sexual life somewhere deep inside, suspecting that, and simply retold favorite novel. Kakashi ran from this impromptu bachelorette party straight to Uchiha to test and practice some advice and practices. Missed banal, unapproachable, and cold Uchiha, who in fact turned out not to be such an asshole. She got used to waking up almost every day he was by his side 24/7, to cut through different cities and villages with him, that he was sorely missed next to her, considering that her entire apartment was occupied by her dead drunk friends. She decided that it would be better to spend the night at Sasuke's pleasantly and usefully, and also interesting whether he would like it or not, because while drunk she had so much courage that she would have boldly sealed it in the amount of 10 pieces, and without blinking an eye. Naruto had never been so bad. At the moment she did not feel differently. No, maybe it was there during the war, or after some mortal battle and exhausting training, but it was bad in a different way. Her body did not hurt, but her head was as if they were trying to split it into pieces with a hammer, and in her mouth there was a fierce feeling of merciless desert sun, and in which at least all ninjas were called to Kakashi-sensei. At once shit, she wanted to drink godlessly, and even like brush her teeth. Her throat was sore and scratchy, or she screamed at the top of her lungs throat, or earned herself a tearing cough for some short period of time, from which the muscles of the peritoneum are reduced, and the smooth mercilessly tore. Besides everything else, wanted to drink, and in the stomach there was a vacuum emptiness from which the strange body at the same time wanted to eat about food you think immediately. The stomach begins to reduce in a fit of nausea, and this very emptiness rolled up to the throat an unpleasant lump. The events of yesterday were blurred, and it seemed that they tried to erase them, but did not erase them completely. About a thin unclear layer smeared on the brain. Naruto lay for some time and tried to understand what had happened that she felt so bad. Nearby someone was fiddling around the blonde with grief. In half unstuck and stuck together eyes, and slowly turned her head, sat down to see who was next to her, where she was carried at night, seemed to be at home, and then everything blurred. Woke up. Dabi Uchiha's voice cuts to the ear. Sandpaper. He is definitely having fun. Naruto winces, and tries to remember how he ended up next to Sasuke, or how he ended up next to her. Hold. Something heavy was put in his hand and cool water. Warning question carrying. Naruto is grateful, tries to smile, but they come out forcedly, and somehow squatting. Opens the bottle cap, with shaking hands for some reason, and then one applies to the water, and drinks in big greedy gulps, that most of the water simply flows and varieties dripping onto Sasuke's t-shirt somehow. Suspiciously sarcastically smiles, and his eyes are so thoughtful, places are shining and devils are dancing. They're suspiciously cheerful and perky in general. With his whole appearance he resembles a cat who stole a piece of marble from the table. Beef that with me, the girl wheezed. After drinking more than half of the offered bottle. Hangover. You quail. Yesterday you seem to have had a bachelorette party. Remembers nipples and chatter, and the girl who bombarded her with questions about their relationship, how they slipped her alcohol and got her drunk to such an extent that her tongue was loosened from, and yes, what they talked about, and why she fell into his apartment in the middle of the night, because after listening to their stories she decided to repeat. Honestly, he stopped her as best he could, but drunk Uzumaki Uchiha turned out to be a piece of cake. I quail, but kurama he, and immediately received a sarcastic answer that it was a lesson to her, as a warning that alcohol is a bad thing and you shouldn't abuse it, otherwise there will be such a bad state, and the solution is harmful booze. She just covered her face with her palms, sighing heavily, but the memory of yesterday evening and night did not restore this knowledge. Why am I here? You missed me. That's why she brewed. In the middle of the night, Sasuke's lips themselves involuntarily broke into a satisfied grin, and from the memories, goosebumps ran along the skin, and the lower abdomen sweetly supported the people. And yesterday he was surprised, so surprised, truly unpredictable. What did I do that you smile like that? Inside an unpleasant feeling arose that yesterday she did something that even for her is very strange. This who she definitely could not do in her right mind. You definitely want to know? The guy asked, from what Naruto was embarrassed. All she reluctantly nodded and prepared to hear what happened, but the Uchiha acted differently, deciding to show and flashing a red-black look pulled her into an illusion where he projected his own memories from the side of Uzumaki, and her stomach did a somersault when she was pulled into an illusion, and the world spun around for a moment, and the headache again pressed on whiskey and the back of his head. It made him grab his elbow nipples with a death grip. Although they were still sitting on his bed at first, it was even somehow funny and not entirely shameful until the moment with penetration into his apartment ended. But with each minute she felt how her face was rapidly filling with red paint, and her cheeks were burning, as if she had at least hot red pepper in her blood. She was especially ashamed of the moment of seduction. Nipples, clumsy, assertive, not tolerating objections. Yes, she almost raped him. And what did she tell him? And rightly, that she did not want to remember her theft. Remarks worthy of Chicha Uchiha. It is worth admitting that her sweet speeches promising heavenly pleasure with a slurred tongue did not fall for her, and if she had not pressed him against the wall, suppressing all his protests in such a state, then he would have resisted further. But she was so convincing and stubborn that even the nipples gave in, and just silently enjoyed when she brazenly pulled them off, pants with underwear, and sat down on her knee with a certain smile. At this point she preferred to turn away and hide her concevo and face with her hands. So shameful had never been, but this was not the limit, because everything that followed wanted to be forgotten like a bad dream. It was much more humiliating than a desire to fall through the ground. Flared up after a pleasant night for her boyfriend, almost immediately she began to vomit. Drunk Eaton asked to get out, and Nipples, despite the fact that he was twisted and concussed, held her hair and carefully stroked her back until she let go, and the contents of her stomach did not go down the drain, and after her almost unconscious pale green carcass was put under a cool shower, rinsed, wiped, and on the front a t-shirt with Madame Uchiha put to bed Kami-sama how caring he is, even the heart sweetly squeezed, and on the lips a dreamy smile. But then suddenly thoughts again focused on her shame. Kami-sama, kill me, let you shrink to size. Adam didn't work, but she wanted to. She was never so ashamed in front of Nipples. Yes, she was like the last pig. Let's repeat, only without alcohol, please. Grinned Uchiha, as always amuses her with the state in this. He was all cried out and Naruto when the illusion ended, but it became much easier because Sasuke, although he laughed at her in his favorite manner, but not so much that it hurt critical and pride, and did not look at her as some kind of garbage, because the blonde almost ruined the entire bathroom with the contents of her stomach. Shut up, for God's sake, shut up, blushed again so much that any tomato would be envious, and then rushed to run until she burned from shame, and that was too much. You will stay with me. I think today we will take your things from, and I have enough of your reckless actions. Grabbed her nipples, pressing to himself, and meet less with friends otherwise. You will pick up all sorts of things. Know that they opened up aspects of other intimate closeness to her. For this, he will say thank you, but he didn't need Naruto to pick up all sorts of unnecessary things from them, for example, a craving for alcohol from Sakura, and the makings of a commander from Temari, the habit of dressing revealingly, and you were taken aback by Uzumaki, and forgot that you shamefully fled from your own shame and embarrassment. She stared at the brunette without blinking, more signs that this is a joke, but he was serious as never, it seems. They are all very serious, very, very serious. Uchiha is carried into the dark wilds of thoughts fed by how his life has changed, his living space has transformed, too. What will happen next, and where their relationship will lead. Nipples always thought that Uzumaki was too much, but this simple truth turned out to be a delusion, a big delusion, very, very big, even more than his and narcissism taken together. Naruto became an outrageously large amount in his life, exactly at the moment when he took her to himself, and from this it was quite possible to get tired of the fact that every damn millimeter of his apartment was filled with an unbearable blonde. How his life, he did not complain, just oh damn, it's boiling over. Goldilocks was everywhere, and always with him, and if he was hundreds of kilometers away from him on a long mission, this was almost not felt after the third general cleaning, and he realized that, in principle, he would never get rid of long blonde hair. Even if they became so carried away by 40 each other, and Sasuke would burn this apartment to hell, all the same, to ashes, and her faded hair will remain. They were everywhere, in his bed, in the sink, on the floor, in the carpet, in the shower drain, in the closet. Sometimes in food, and at home, and before it was prepared, in rare exceptions, and by the hand of the Uchiha herself, as if she diligently and methodically combed her curls in his absence, and painted the remaining hair on the comb in all sorts of places and cracks, so that later he would not miss her and remember her. And what difference does it make if with a bad word? But he remembered the Uchiha took on the responsibility of combing her long golden hair, and every morning and evening he took both the comb in his hands and combed it himself, soft, hide and seek. The result was obvious. The amount of hair in his apartment decreased, and after the procedure Naruto became so soft, gentle, and affectionate. Power lassoed to him, drowning in her own feelings, which skillfully and subtly transmitted through touch and kisses. Sasuke was already drowning together with her in the pool of her feelings. The same thing happened with the wounded. At first, he was everywhere, the whole kitchen was filled with him, until the Uchiha got mad, and burned this crap with a tone of voice that grew louder, and a tearful look at his girlfriend a minute before. Unsafely, she laughed loudly and sonorously, and her laughter could not be called Perry Levi's there, like the ringing of bells, because this was a wild cackle to tears more reminiscent of sh new horses with Mocking my notes, maybe the decision to burn the ramen he made because she laughed at him not in her best manner. The thing was that when he opened one of the drawers in the kitchen, a bunch of these rustling packages fell out on him, taking the great and mighty Uchiha by surprise. It was not fatal, but it really pissed him off while people, and it was fun. The girl was clearly trying to shove the unshovable, and she succeeded before the first attempt to open the drawer. And then after he called this blasphemous act of justice on Dramas an act of concern for her health. Takes Naruto away from quickly. He didn't get instant noodles under threats scandals surprisingly, but the apartment remained intact. Persuasion attempts to come to a compromise. She still ate this damn stinking custard ramen secretly from him after the demonstration of active burning of it made stashes in his apartment which he couldn't find for a long time and still had no idea where it was, and foxes hid most of the strategic reserve of this nastiness, the conclusion suggested. Itself this infection knew his Jew better than he did, and when she had time and in the end his apartment turned into their apartment, awareness covered like an avalanche. Quickly and irreversibly, Naruto quickly brought a bit of turmoil to his quiet abode. On the verge of full-fledged chaos, and crowded out most of his things and him. In principle, although she didn't have many things, but magically they took up most of the space, and it became cramped for them in this room together. Sasuke was not against all this, although sometimes longing for his bachelor past took over in this. A moment a chill ran sharply, and the soul and heart were covered with a crust of ice. In contrast to this chilling feeling reminiscent of a dank and destructive but relatively calm and quiet loneliness, the guy remembered that now he was not alone, and next to him lived a person who, no matter what, pulled him out of any ass spitting on his own pride and feelings in general. He was ready to tolerate new orders and radical changes for the sake of the warming presence of his sunny blonde, and he closed his eyes to all the above nuances for the time being until Uzumaki in his direct childish manner brings him to another attack of rage, forcing him to spit which right and left, and his head became dizzy. A crazy thought that it's time to change living space, and preferably as soon as possible, so that the house is large, roomy, and strong. This is the most important thing, as well as its location away from densely populated areas. Growing Konoha, this is here, and do not hold back, and scandals do not go further than verbal battles, but still, and if you look into the distant future you never know, they have everything too serious, so serious that at one fine red moment they will have children. Uchiha turned over twisted. He decided that he needs to be more careful. Children are too much for him, and Naruto, who herself is sometimes like a child, he would like to revive his clan, but the bottom of Uzumaki, or with her no from her terrible wife and housewife, and also too ambitious with her dreams and aspirations. What kind of family are they when they are so different? And Naruto can be just a serious and sick hobby that will dissipate after oversaturation. Uchiha was not sure that they will all go so far, but lately, except Naruto, he no one next to him I didn't see and couldn't imagine, and the character of Goldilocks didn't bother him at all, and didn't scare him as her strength and power, and it was mutual. It smells like an ideal. Definitely about their future. It's worth thinking about properly, otherwise Naruto will fill his days forever from types most of the nerves, and it's worth thinking about whether he's ready to tolerate her all his life, but that's a completely different story. Sasuke growls angrily when Uzumaki dodges his attempt to kiss her. This has been going on for several days, and frank displays of his feelings can be considered the highest level of his emotionality. Uchiha is weighed so that the blood boils. Indignation and anger cover him with his head, and a veil of rage covers Naruto's eyes. Brought him what the hell? A question full of desperate anger bites into the girl's shoulder blade just a second before his hands grab her by the shoulders, and the guy with all his might slams her into the wall. Don't worry about the fact that she might be in pain, that Naruto is a Zitza under the gaze of Uchiha's eyes, reasonably understanding that she deserved it, but continues to play the innocent fool, batting his eyelashes and trying to express complete incomprehension and surprise. Your detachment hangs over him, not threateningly intending to pull out of her all the details of her behavior that excite him. You have been avoiding me for a week. What did I do? What are you doing this to me? Nipples freeze without her warmth, go wild without her affection, go crazy from the loneliness in which she plunges him even when he is nearby. Naruto bit his lip and looks away, guilty, not even resisting, not trying to wriggle out of the captivity of his hands. This is the first time in a week that he is closer to her than at arm's length. All this time, she carefully ever dodged him, showing almost and not pirouettes of equilibristics, avoided almost headlong. What's the matter? He says threateningly through his teeth. And with all his might, clock enters the wall. He must throw out his anger immediately, otherwise he will take it out on her. Her silence oppresses and hurts, and he wants to plunge her into this very alloy of negativity. To show poke her nose that it is more than unpleasant for him. People, but do not know what to say. On the one hand, she is ashamed to talk about it, and on the other hand she cannot find the words to explain briefly the reason her behavior is silent, as if she took water in her mouth looking at him over her shoulder, avoiding the beginner Oleg Sharingan, and the feeling of guilt eats her up from the inside. Speak orders, and the voice is colder and sharper than steel, cuts into the ears. Our relationship is incest, blurted out in one breath Uzumaki. Finally turning her gaze to his distorted and angry face, Naruto looks at him with wide eyes, noticing how he frowns, trying to comprehend what he heard. That Sasuke is dumbfounded, and even more than well. We are not only kindred spirits, but distant relatives. Continues to broadcast what she has been thinking about for so long, tormented by the fact that their relationship from a genetic point of view is immoral. This has not given her peace for about a week, and the more she thought about it, the more she was convinced that this is wrong. Incest, does not believe her thoughts, deafen them, give birth on the spot with their stupidity. Uchiha does not know whether to anger him further or to laugh, because almost hysterical laughter is already bursting from her chest. Well, Indra and Ashura, our direct ancestors, our brothers and founders of our clans. Naruto furiously begin to defend their theory, signed with facts and a family tree that she dug up in the archive, having studied it properly. Dabi moves away. Uchiha, bending in half in a fit of laughter like this, gives himself such an offended sulking Jinchuriki assumed after all that. Tell him she's tormented right away. You will be here. Well, and in her own truth she drowned so much that she almost believed that it was wrong and unpleasant. That's why she avoided contact with him. Come here, stupid. Sasuke, not without an effort of will, pulls his usual mask of composure on his face, swallowing a fit of laughter, and pulls him to himself, getting angry. And Naruto, of the two of us should be offended. I notice Uchiha hugging the blonde tightly, but we doomed to, grumbles the girl, not rushing to hug him, but it's worth admitting it was hard for her to ignore his desire. Calm down, we are not direct relatives, and it was so long ago that it is unlikely that we are genetically related. Buries his nose in the golden crown, and deeply inhales its aroma. And don't forget that from the south, so as not to dilute the blood. The newcomers shinobi keeping their tooth to marry within the clan, and rarely when it happens differently. It just dawned on her, and she smiled, pressing herself into Sasuke, hugging him until his ribs crunched oregano. And didn't think at all what a fool you are after all, she says affectionately, almost tenderly, resigning herself to the fact that her head is a mess. Uchiha moves away from her half a step to bend down and finally kiss, until some other stupidity came into her head. It was necessary to ignore him for a whole week to hammer into her brains that they are relatives. Well, yes, this is Naruto. What did he expect from her? Uchiha Sasuke had never felt so stupid, and so stupid that this feeling exceeded selfishness and vanity and arrogance combined. And this is if you omit the all-encompassing feeling of shame and humiliation that he had just experienced. And for the entire deceased Uchiha clan as a whole, he even felt like Madara turned over in his grave when one very small but damn important detail regarding the Sharingan was revealed, or briefly about what experiments one Uzumaki Naruto can lead to, and everything as always began with her stupid ideas. Sasuke affectionately saying Naruto, suddenly distracted from combing her hair after a shower and pressing harder kabuku of the aforementioned, looking into his eyes. H&M glancing sideways at her, the guy realized that the people had started some kind of stupidity, and judging by the bright flame sparkling in her eyes, it infuriates there, that stupidity of a large-scale caliber. So The decision to ignore her was made lightning fast, almost as Sharingan and things will not end well. I thought here started from afar. Jinchuriki, to which I immediately received an instant answer, piercing skeptical look people, and immediately offendedly pouted. Her lips interpreted this look as you think harmful. Hey, you didn't even listen to me, and you're already looking as if I'm some kind of stingy silo blonde. Painfully poked the latter in the ribs, having studied, making him flinch from the tangible and unpleasant. Well, I'm all in attention. Put my book aside. Uchiha turned his head to her and looked attentively into her eyes, burning with enthusiasm. This was one of the downsides of their relationship. He couldn't both push her around with the same inveterate constancy as in the old days, and insult / humiliate / mock his people and will be offended by him and will ignore and revenge, well, or the matter will end with the usual fistfight. And again complete ignoring of his person, and for some time now he couldn't stand both the silent presence and very clever attempts to avoid any contact with him. Being dependent on her attention made him vulnerable and sad. Look, even Uchiha can be trapped in the Sharingan of another Uchiha. People fidgeted next to him impatiently and could barely speak coherently and ate away. Curiosity and interest, coupled with the desire to check some guesses. Sasuke nodded. Does not understand at all what she is getting at, and in general, how they are arranged and mask in principle. Sat peaceful, relaxed, and after a shower combed her hair. After a shower, humming something to herself under her breath, and pressing herself into his god, and then suddenly Anu flew at him with questions. And Sharingan not barely sitting on the couch, and from the curiosity that overwhelmed her, know that she often goes from one extreme to another, did not surprise him, but the topic of conversation slightly so tense. And what will happen to the Uchiha if he looks in the reflection of his own Sharingan and during the performance of jutsu, let's say Jukiyama? She looked at him with such hope, as if he was a walking encyclopedia and owns all the sacred secrets of the universe at least, and will definitely answer her question. Uchiha eyebrows slowly crawled up in surprise, and how did she even think of such a thing? Although yes, it was Naruto on his face again. The stone mask, impenetrable shinobi. He should have been prepared in advance for hundreds of thousands of such stupid questions, and they should not surprise him, but still. Not everything is life prepared me for. I don't know, and I don't want to know, he said coldly, losing interest in the conversation. Excellent feeling of dissatisfaction, Naruto, with his answer, and I want to know, bent her Naruto, and her eyes flashed even brighter. Let's see what happens. Well, at most you'll fall into your own illusion, and at least I'll be left a full lips, and stretched into a wide smile, and eyes looked with hope to them. With a plea, no, categorical and prickly, forcing Uzumaki to snatch the book from his hands behind which he naively hid from her enthusiasm. In the blink of an eye, she found herself sitting on his lap, clasping his face with her palms so that he wouldn't turn away, and looked exclusively at no. If it were, she was going to hypnotize, but please, what does it cost? You immerse yourself in a light illusion, I will quickly bring you out of it, the girl begged, fidgeting on his hips, playing on his nerves. PF discontentedly uttered the last of the best. Resisting the girl's persuasion, well, I thought about it, biting my lip. What could be offered? Nipples, so that he would agree to carry out a small experiment. You will not succeed, smugly uttered. Nipples. He is even ready to tolerate ignoring from her side, just not to do such stupid things. From the very idea of testing this idiotic guess in action made her feel like a cretin. Well, Uzumaki could not think of anything sensible until her own memory threw her a case from the recent past. The girl instantly blushed, becoming red there, and then let me pronounce the condition that can push the nipples. To fulfill her request, she could not, tongue as if taken away, and cheeks began to speak several times louder. Nipples, seeing her reaction, I blink again, concentrating all my attention on her crimson face and frightened look, allowing myself to show a drop of curiosity. Naruto quickly moved on to bargaining, passing by blackmail. This as well, that's it. Well, the girl in confusion bit her lips, taking her hands away from his face, and nervously fiddling with the ends of her hair, constantly looking away. I can't say this yes from you, roared Apache, and I'm not a blonde. Keys from her own embarrassment, something the most he did not understand her at all. Neither her incoherent speech nor the reasons why she is so red. M and K when well on her knees, but this PP after. The bachelorette party, Naruto hid her face with her palms, not sure, looking at him through a small crack between her fingers. One memory made her fall into the ground with shame, not to mention saying such a thing out loud. Although incoherent and impersonal, I still don't understand, but he understood and was even ready to give in to her almost instantly, so as not to test her patience, because this is what he asked to repeat, and then she hid under the blanket, languishing with shame. Call him a pervert. You understand, the girl reproached him. Okay, we agreed, I'm ready to feel like a fool for this. He smiled condescendingly. Let's take the mirror, holding out his hand to her, looking at her. Allah, with black eyes, Naruto, pleased that she had found a way to bargain for checking her guess, jumped off his lap and rushed to the nightstand, pulling out a small one and a mirror, and on the first, cosmic, returning back, impatiently holding out her nipples. The Uchiha sighed heavily and took the mirror from her hands with the look of a great martyr, immediately looked at his reflection, casting a light genjutsu on him. He felt how the Jinchuriki held her breath, tenaciously watching his every movement. The feeling of the absurdity of the situation intensified, disappeared equal at the moment when he completed the genjutsu, falling into his own illusion. Not a word to anyone. Evil, hissed Uchiha, annoyed that it worked and stupid, and the assumption was confirmed. The Sharingan had a weak spot and so ridiculous, and it made him feel vulnerable and disgraced. Great Zetsu, a powerful clan, could be broken by just a piece of silver glass. It would be better if he didn't agree to this. Then she voiced, not a slave, you look bad. Sakura sat down next to Naruto, expressing her concern about her friend's condition, although in a very rude form. She barely noticed her juice over down at, not immediately recognizing in faded sullen blonde eternally positive Naruto. So noticeably people broke away from aimless contemplation fountains on the square, slightly raising her head and turned her exhausted gaze to the former teammates. Very at hours well, and hands itched to immediately start checking the health of a friend, but to give such impudent persistence, and would have run away headlong. Uzumaki, there were two in the village on escape from medical examinations immediately after Kakashi. She always had an excuse. I'm great. Kurama will not lie. What happened? I feel sick from ramen. Tearfully complained Naruto, clutching his stomach. Inside, everything twisted into that spiral from just one memory of his favorite dish, and Naruto was sure a little more and her stomach would again converge into spasms of nausea, and Sakura frowned only for a second. Naruto feels sick from ramen, and then a lightning thought dawned on her about the interesting position of a friend. It's so obvious. In the eyes danced sparks of genuine curiosity, and to keep hands on knees was catastrophically difficult, the medic assumed, and wanted to check her guesses. After all, Naruto almost never liked spoiled food and never had a more serious cold. And after Uzumaki established all the bridges with her Biju, and was generally healthier than everyone in the village, what kind of intestinal virus can we talk about? And you don't happen to feel unwell? Maybe your lower abdomen has been hurting for several days, and you want to eat something that you usually don't eat. Questions rained down with the speed of a flying thing, dipping now into heat then into cold throes. Jabbering, Sakura moved closer to Naruto, almost pressing her shoulder into her shoulder. I feel bad, just said Uzumaki, sighing painfully, and too, catching the essence of the questions asked by Sakura. They added up to a solid set, literally an attack of nausea. Did not let go, and Kurama on me. Offended, not treated. Offended again, with tears suppressed, a roll lice throat lump. People switched off trying to ease the pain. She hasn't been so bad for a long time, and half of your questions until recently, I feel like a squeezed lemon. And the Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed did not ask herself what was the matter. She blamed everything on the fact that she was constantly driven on small missions. Life with the Uchiha turned out to be full of household trifles. Give me nipples on those rare days that happen at home without assignments. She does not get off the Akira May, and also holds a grudge against her for the fact that she now lives with Sasuke, ignoring all her small health problems as a result. Against the background of all this taken together, she felt universal fatigue. Sakura clearly found this a case of Naruto's malaise. More and more interesting, and her position on the interesting situation grew stronger. Acquiring ironclad arguments people and would have confused her behavior if it were any task on her own lousy health and attempts to cope with nausea. Pink-haired almost and jumped sitting from impatience. Maybe you also have a delay. Sakura tried to speak equally and quietly, but still voice treacherously trembled from impatience. Naruto thought, frowning even more. Usually she did not follow the calendar and began red days of the calendar warned Kurama, and often he could somehow influence the process by slowing down or speeding up some hormones or something like that. He himself could not really explain to her, he just helped, and that's all. But he again is silent and does not show his nose for a couple of months now. I don't know, shrugged Naruto, but suddenly feeling increased nervous tension, unnaturally straightened up. So stop. She had not had them for a couple of months. A chill ran down her back and her heart sank into her heels. What kind of inattention do you need to be to not have something like that? Notice Uzumaki wanted to slap herself on the forehead with all her might, catching herself in her own idiocy. Sakura, of course, noticed the sharp change in her friend's behavior and smiled conspiratorially. Only the inner Sakura, in which the medic was vigilant around the clock, rationally repeated that it could be a malfunction in the body, nervous tension, and other things. Naruto's pregnancy still had to be proven based on the tests, they own observation. Just don't say that I word so stuck on the tongue. It was even scary to pronounce. Uzumaki nervously pinched the fabric of the t-shirt with his fingers, looking at Haruno with fear. Sakura smiled, and from her green sparkling eyes it became clear that the medic had already made her verdict, but was in no hurry to voice it. Holy tomatoes, all the paint drained. Merged a frost ran across the skin, and Naruto hammered a nervous chill on her. In one fell swoop, so many thoughts fell on her that she simply drowned in this chaos, feeling only fear and not worry. You, so it's not fatal, but Naruto clearly thought otherwise, judging by the expression on her face. Clouds of tension over her friend were gathering, and Haruno hurried to calm her down. Prakash Livshits. Sakura tried to turn on the medic in herself, removing the meticulous mode of an overly joyful friend. Let me check here and now so that you understand for sure. But sobriety of mind was not going to return to her so soon. For some reason de Castilla that she was the first to find out such exciting news, and it was not normal, and happiness for Naruto was such a rush to get out. Although Uzumaki herself was more than scared, that was in complete panic. No, people recoiled from her like from a leper. Nausea began to rise in her throat again, and most likely not from ramen, from the realization of his own situation. To hear here and now confirmation of this terrible guess was akin to a death sentence. Listen, maybe I rushed to conclusions. Good mood like the wind blew away. Sakura, as if she herself was infected with her friend's fear. It could be stress, illness, malfunction in the body. Maybe you really were poisoned. Haruno bent her fingers, listing the reasons for Naruto's illness. Just let's all the eyes. Then you will panic. Turn. Rams glanced towards Uzumaki, then she was not found in place, and there was no trace. Naruto ran away, succumbing to panic, which, by the way, Sakura and novella, damn. Swear student Tsunade, feeling guilty for the fact that Naruto ran away in horror without listening to her. And after all, it is true, and the conclusions could have been hasty, but Naruto already believed in this. Clearly will do stupid things. Sasuke did not expect the mixture upon his return, and to find Naruto at home who was nervous. He paced the room, agitated, disheveled. For some reason she couldn't sit still, and didn't even pay attention to his return. It was more than strange. She herself was paler than chalk, despite her bronze tan. Perhaps he would say that now she was paler than him, and her eyes were full of fear and some kind of confusion, and the nervousness was spreading with barely perceptible pressure throughout the room, penetrating under his skin. What happened? His nipples blocked her path, forcing her to stop and not flicker, a pale, very annoying point in front of his gaze, and he was clearly going to get clear answers from her why she was in such a state. Naruto raised a tortured look at him. She had been collecting her thoughts for more than a day, Every minute she was trying to go to the pharmacy for a test, but her courage had left her at all, courage had not appeared, and at that moment when Sakura came, she hadn't dared to open the door of her worried friend, knowing that something had come not only to support, but in the end it had only scared her more. Having seen that one through the door that perhaps she was already in her second month, maybe even the beginning of her third, and she was feeling sick and from toxicosis, and asked her not to worry so much, because it was dangerous. The signs of pregnancy were obvious, but it was worth checking, but Naruto had enough of this to believe in her diagnosis, because as Haruno said, all the signs were obvious. Despair flooded her with her head, and Kurama continued to remain silent, not commenting on her condition. Chad and I will master chapel with, Uchiha repeated with emphasis, seeing that Naruto was looking through him, lost in his thoughts, and not entirely rosy ones. He even shook her. To be sure, she had come to her senses, emerging from that gloomy swamp of her own thoughts, which and tightened like a quagmire. Naruto barely focused her gaze on him, but was in no hurry to answer. Her eyes were in pure panic II language as if an increase to the sky. It was difficult to speak. The heart of a crazy bird was pounding in her chest from the excitement that had jumped up several times for some reason. She did not think about how her nipples would react, and just then thoughts of his possible reaction to the news crept into her head. He wanted to revive the clan after all. Get a signature. What's wrong with you? With every second that he looked at Naruto's painful face and began to worry more and more, the intonations became softer, the look of black eyes and more concerned, but intuition tearing her throat screamed that judging by the appearance of Uzumaki, he would not tell him anything good, and even on the contrary, it would be something bad, completely depriving of balance, and it was worth preparing for the worst. Baby temporarily barely uttered this word. Naruto, feeling how everything inside was again covered with an icy crust during these damn long days, she came to only one thought: that not ready. Her dreams, ambitions just begun. Good life was cut short, and only now she realized that Sasuke might not be as delighted with the news as she was, and what to do then and whose they were again covered her with her head now. He, and very much counted on the fact that he would accept this news, stand hug and say that everything would be fine with them and they would cope, that he would tell her how to behave further, calm her down and maybe rejoice, and then it would become easier. She needed his support like air, and now she was suffocating without it. Naruto could not cope with this thought alone, and could not accept reality for the first time in her memory galloping and the coming apocalypse. It was easier to come to terms with them with this. She mentally grinned. She needed a strong shoulder on which she could rely and be sure that adversity would pass by, because nipples are sure to protect her from them. Nipples strong, brave and courageous, and she was now such a weak, defenseless and scared to death girl, and was even afraid to imagine that he would turn away from. She will run away, having learned not ready for such responsibility, therefore did not think distancing herself from this topic by her own fear of the current situation, trying to protect herself from unnecessary experiences entailing painful despair on a subconscious level that you, Sasuke, not believing, stared at. Naruto recently systematically disappeared. No, it was self-evident and quite logical, and he should not be surprised, because he suspected that sooner or later this would happen, and earlier wanted to revive the clan, but Uchiha took a step back, removing his hands from Naruto's shoulders. Amazement on his face reached its peak. He will become a father so soon? Uchiha was more than shocked and not ready. Absolutely. Naruto froze in anticipation. He heard everything she confidently, and decided that repeating extra nipples kept silence oppressive, devouring the remains of her composure as if acid in the throat. A prickly lump came up and her eyes stung. In her head she was beating in hysterics. One single thought: he will be more scared than herself, and will not accept this reality, will run away as always. No, tough cruelly, and in the eyes the fear is the same as hers. Probably no, we do not need this. He quickly accepted the fact that he does not need it, but falsely covered it up behind this us, although it seems to her too it is useless. Not now, not then. When he began to slowly sort out his own life, putting his broken psyche in order, getting used to reality Without a place for getting the exorbitant feeling of guilt before his brother and to Naruto, yes, and he still perceived her as a friend, the truth with whom you can do a little more than just with a friend, while noticing the depth of her feelings, just enjoying them but maintaining emotional neutrality, because she calmly accepted his silence and detachment and did not climb with stupid questions like "Do you love me?" who experienced an abnormal attraction on the verge of insanity. And knowing that she received unimaginable pleasure from this, and against the background of all this tried to come to terms with the fact that each time she took up more and more space in his life, they were only in the apartment. Uzumaki abruptly tore herself away from her place. Nausea caught her by surprise, forcing her to run to the toilet on the first cosmic, holding her mouth with her hand, and it was her temporary salvation from the destructive reality. She would definitely think about it later when she would not be turned inside out. Crying and getting upset was never while the contents of the stomach were asking to come out, as well as analyzing the words nipples. This is what she could understand from his look. Sasuke looked at the back of the running Naruto. I understand that he was not sure that he wanted to eat in Konoha, to start a family, especially with Naruto. He thought about it earlier, reflected on his feelings for her, but did not come to any conclusion except that he was very comfortable with her, and it is convenient. And for now, you want to live only for yourself, rehabilitate in your own eyes, and in the eyes of others, and now you only want one thing: to leave again, to digest what happened, no even run in panic from the responsibility that fell on him when Naruto came out of the bathroom, having thoroughly rinsed his mouth and washed his face with cold water. Uchiha, and there was no trace, but suddenly both anger and hatred for Sasuke flared up in not unexpected, stronger than his own fear, drowning out any panic. Uchiha was Uchiha, ran away, leaving without answers, without really talking to her. Leaving her alone with her increased burden of problems, did not support, did not listen, did not help in any way, and it seems broke her heart. Maybe this is the end. Is it really her situation, in which, by the way, they are both to blame? Exposed the truth. Face Uchiha. Anger grew exponentially. Uzumaki gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, went to the closet. Nipples shook out all the fears from her as she now shook out the entire closet, furiously collecting her things, replacing all this confusion with a flash of unbridled anger. At least for this, thank him. You know there is a false pregnancy. Sakura was upset. The truth is that this is exactly what she wanted, to avoid the impulsiveness of Naruto, which will break firewood, and apparently the firewood was broken and now burned with hellish flames. This, and in the soul covering with ashes, the fragments of broken expectations, especially since she would not have come here without completely coming to terms with the fact of her pregnancy, and therefore from the category of unpleasant surprises, the interesting situation grew into an expected unpleasant, and judging by the disappointed Mu looks and the sad mini on Naruto's face, Sakura was right. Uzumaki was already expecting this child. You have a hormonal imbalance. This happens. A feature of Kunoichi. Sakura encouragingly squeezed her friend's hand, Miss smiling sweetly. Nausea, it was most likely poisoning, or you railing, and then stress. The medic continued to broadcast in a soft voice. Naruto was sitting with an unseeing gaze, staring at the wall opposite, digesting what she heard. She really felt disappointment and some kind of sucking emptiness in her chest that was sucking in more and more feelings, leaving nothing behind, and in her stomach like a hole. You will still succeed. Sakura hugged her devastated friend, stroking the wall. Stupidly, Haruno subtly felt that Naruto was more than upset. Just the whole range of feelings in her turned off from shock and an attempt to cope with broken expectations, but Sakura was wrong. Naruto digested what he heard, burst into tears out loud without holding back herself in any framework. The last words of the former teammate smashed to pieces, and self-control and unshed spider tears poured onto the white coat of Haruno. Sakura, she never told the reason for her breakdown, rejoicing that Haruno herself attributed, and in tears a good reason to talk about the fact that she had problems in her personal life, did not want, and she intended to hide it as long as possible, especially seeing in green eyes genuine understanding. Bottomless ocean of pity with sympathy was beyond her strength, as well as then fighting off Sakura, who would try to organize a rehabilitation center for victims of Sasuke Uchiha's departure as the very first Girl abandoned by him, although they were couples only in Sakura's dreams, but it would clearly be their vice president teammates already. I was in a similar situation with the same nipples. Now Naruto was in Sakura's skin. Only the circumstances were different. It was depressing, it made me angry, but the anger passed. Sobriety of mind came true, a touch of disappointment remained. She didn't think that he would do that. It would be better if he provoked her into a scandal than such a departure from the point of view of the logic of things. She understood nipples, they are too young and almost their entire lives. They fought for a place in the sun, only just starting to live a full life, as much as possible being a shinobi with an extra burden on their shoulders in the form of a difficult fate, and he was afraid that changes were coming without having time to really come to terms with the current state of affairs. She was also scared because she had no idea how to get along with children, especially when you yourself give birth to this child. Being a mother is much more than an answer for someone's life. But then in Sakura's office, she experienced disappointment and sadness. On the other hand, he would have become the most dear and close person for her, and she tried for his sake to become the best mother, such as the one who fantasized in her childhood being an orphan. Hell, yes, she even wanted to come up with a name he knew. His father. He had at least a clear understanding of this role, while Naruto had nothing but fantasies, based on his own observations. Grew up in a family where he was loved, and his brother loved him more than life, and this love broke not only Itachi, but also nipples, and in addition, almost the entire powerful clan died out. Uchiha was afraid of attachments, afraid of love, and clearly afraid of the thought of family like fire. Once his family was taken away from him, and it hurt him so much that to this day, he has not come to his senses, and now he is afraid to create his second. Such shock will become the starting point of his quiet madness, which by the way she suppressed at the cost of her hand and almost life, and now he was trying to break the attachment to her again, and maybe check how strong this connection is in order to return later and repent of his sins. To dream, then, no one forbade her. Perhaps he will accept her as the person with whom he wants to be next to all his life, and now he is trying to come to this decision in proud loneliness, and she will give him time, and if he does not cope within the time frame that he does not even suspect, she will definitely be mortally offended, spitting on his smug personality. The Hokage Tower. Naruto did not suffer from his choice, almost. Think about it, she cried a little, and only then. Her chest hurts and pricks. This is bearable as long as she has compelling arguments for his action. This would tie them hand and foot. Uzumaki understood this perfectly. Goodbye to all desires and dreams. Long live the sacrifices in the name of family, love and loyalty. She also loved her freedom as he did. But she liked to belong to him. Unlike him, she could intuitively assume that the connection between them was so strong that Sasuke himself had no idea what he had gotten himself into. By lifting her up under himself, perhaps Naruto, as always, was too naive and kind-hearted, and this banal habit of whitewashing the reputation of the sucker, and it worked automatically whether he wanted it or not, and justifying his actions was the highest degree of moral masochism and an act of the highest degree of disrespect for his pride. But what could she do when that same love, unknown to both of them, was almost added to their connection, and she already knew in advance that if he came to her, she would quickly return to her previous rut. Having forgiven the suckers, she would be offended a little, but she would forgive her. She always forgave him for his ZM and arrogance and other delights. What are these red Uchihas? Just good luck. See, they have it in their blood. Nothing can be done about it. No matter how many Uchihas she had met, they were all genetics to the marrow of their bones. You can't just throw them away, you have to put up with it, and she was generally a time bomb with a demon inside, so they were worth each other, are those who can neutralize the other almost without noise. Okay, having adjusted the landscape a little, they both Beast Boy will not give up even to each other. Hell, yes, they have hundreds of reasons to be together no matter what. They are simply kindred spirits, and were simply made for each other. With all their shortcomings he makes up for both the dark side, and she is light side, and right now, she was coming up with Hundreds of reasons to justify the quiet very bastard departure of the Uchiha, making life easier for him about which he was probably already beginning to suspect. Uzumaki was disappointed again when Kurama turned his attention to his Jinchuriki, interrupting the flow of her thoughts aimed at justifying the act of. The Uchiha Kubo was infuriated that with the departure of the nipple in her head, there were even more thoughts about this. Red-eyed degenerates spit at 6. I will give, he said everything he thought about this situation as a whole, and then several interesting facts flowed out. She could not even imagine that the fox, offended, would arrange a boycott for her, and several other unpleasant surprises. For example, he would arrange a hormonal imbalance which in the end it became the beginning of a whole chain of events that led to the deplorable state of the Kyuubi hated the Uchiha and could not come to terms with the fact that his Naruto was the only vessel with whom he found a common language, and not only with the damned red-eyed. According to the assurance of the nine-tailed, this whole situation showed the true face of the sucker, reminding that in any incomprehensible situation, the Uchiha prefer to run or kill another, is not given to Alice to be cunning and play on her feelings. Using and naivety mentally exhausted her, and she also him reproached in jealousy, but in no case in hatred towards those who were lucky enough to be born with Sharingan. This made the chickens shut their mouths and again take offense at the people in her humble opinion. Kurama was to blame for all this, and this is exactly what the cunning fox was counting on, and why she is surrounded by all sorts of moral and loving to test her trust and kindness for strength. The man in her life continued to disappoint her. Now she was sulking and on the forests, and a little less on the nipples, which was still full years. The understanding that Uchiha had made a mistake came suddenly when he felt an all-consuming emptiness not only of the skin but also of the mind, and she crept up too late to avoid the maximum consequences, and made a mistake not in the sense that he did not think about the consequences of their connection, but in the fact that he ran away from Naruto, leaving her alone with problems, and on top of that the feeling of guilt stunned crushing with its weight of consciousness. He left her alone, the most difficult turning point in life. The people, and they're alone with problems, are also afraid. He is worried, not knowing what to do next, waiting for his support. Unto the marrow of his bones, she never left him, never turned away under any circumstances, sacredly believed in his prudence, and he, as always, did not live up to both expectations, and for some reason he was more than sure that this time she would not run after him on his heels, continuing to also meekly believe in his boundlessness. He wanted to bang his head against the wall. Impulsiveness is not his style, but the fact that he ran away was precisely the impulsive act, dictated by an inexplicably great fear in the face of the opening prospects, and but life together. For the umpteenth time he was running away from her, and he also had no idea how to make amends. A persistent feeling that if Naruto returned he would ignore his existence because of a mortal insult firmly rooted in his brain, and then it became scary again. She would turn away from him for a long time, if not forever. Any patience comes to an end, even angelic, and it seems this time he completely went too far. This feeling made him jump from the spot, and when he returned home the apartment was empty. It was in disarray, which testified to Naruto's packing. Most of the drawers were turned out, and the contents of the closet were selective, and the ringing silence was killing him morally. She left from the feeling of guilt and shame eroded his self-control with double force. He screwed up completely, and now only he had to sort it out. Naruto ran away just up and went on a mission. Uchiha, from this thought, swore and sang first of all to himself when he finally matured enough to find her and try to make amends for his guilt. He did not find her at home, and in general she was nowhere, and the feeling of guilt with every day grew and strengthened and almost crushed the feeling of his pride and dignity. The Uchiha was ready to rush to look for her outside the village and, no matter how ironic it sounded, bring her back home. These urges irritated him, and only the pitiful remnants of common sense did not allow him to do so, because he simply had no idea how to apologize to her. This also made him feel like an uncouth blockhead, how much everything fell on him at once. It drove him crazy, especially understanding the blonde's character, which made him Worry about Uzumaki being outside the village had a damn strong influence on him. He was sad, bored, and damn worried, and the latter was caused by the fact that, on top of everything else, he came up with a startling conclusion that girls in Naruto's position are forbidden to be nervous, a truism, the pain cut to the quick, forcing them to experience a gnawing, merciless feeling of anxiety, because Uzumaki took everything too much to heart. His bestial act definitely hit her hard. He felt in his gut that she was suffering from his isma, and God forbid, and her depressed state would somehow harm their child. The Uchiha would not forgive herself, and that was because she was also a fool. Damn it, for once, he cared about the fact that because of his selfishness and the suffering of another person, he wanted to hang a sheet of paper on the wall. It turned out that it was shitty to worry and worry again, because of 100 reasons connected to each other by one reason. Uzumaki Naruto, and to feel like a fool, unexpectedly, that all this was caused by just one person, and one wonders why the hell Naruto treated herself so carelessly. Okay, to herself, such a child. Because of this, he already angry at Uzumaki and again at himself. Uchiha sighed, resignedly wanted to hit his head against the wall from the feeling of his own idiocy and paradoxical helplessness. If it weren't for his habit of running away in any incomprehensible situation, people wouldn't have run away to the first mission she came across, pregnant and knowing her like peeling on his soul. Cats were scratching, grinding down his stone soul into crumbs. Now he not only resigned himself to Uzumaki's situation but also perceived it with a barely noticeable smile on his face. As soon as he thought about it, he was already waiting for these damn months of pregnancy to pass, and he would hold their child in his arms. The fate of becoming a father frightened him less and less, and she also smoothed out his rough, harsh character traits, making his inner one softer. Interestingly, she would be happy that he not only accepted her situation but was also glad about it, and then he understood how he could apologize to with minimal consequences for his pride and with the maximum coefficient for her. At one point, he took advantage of Naruto's absence in order to find them a new home. He searched for a short time but carefully relying on the fact that one Uzumaki, one Uchiha, and one Uzumaki Uchiha would live in it, which was the most unpredictable change in their equation, and found the most suitable option. He believed that by bringing her a new home where there would be a place for a child, she would forgive him and understand his feelings and desires. He of course doubted that Uzumaki would immediately understand what he wanted to say by this, but he was sure that in the end she would accept with a wide smile on her face his desire to become a full-fledged family, and it seems he had not been so serious for a long time when signing papers on the purchase of suitable housing for his future family. Forgive me, but what are you asking me to do? Sakura looked at the gloomy Uchiha with wide eyes, experiencing nothing more than simple surprise. It seemed that he had put some kind of sophisticated genjutsu on her and was trying to joke, and just in case she tried to brush away this obsession. And no, this is a deeply shocking reality. Help me choose furniture for the nursery, Uchiha repeated coldly, internally irritated, and even pronouncing this request cost him a lot of effort. He was paying for it with his already battered sense of self worth. Asakura was pretending to be either deaf or stupid, as it turned out. Arranging a nursery raised a sea of questions, especially choosing a crib. He had no idea that buying the necessary things for a child was such a hassle, especially those products needed to care for babies, choosing between baby powder or special protective cream under a diaper. For him, this was more difficult than the most dangerous, a deadly mission. His head was swollen from all this. But Uchiha was too fanatical about his idea, intending to carry it out efficiently, so he decided to ask Sakura for help, as she was not the last person for him, and she had to understand all these things. Sakura slowly digested what he heard. The shock from Uchiha retreated. Sasuke asked her for help in choosing baby accessories. Kami-sama, after all, what kind of Sasuke? Uchiha asked her. Even felt sick. The world was starting to go crazy. Furniture for the children's room, muttered under Her breath, Sakura really not believing that Sasuke was asking her for help until she realized. The whole point of the situation, Naruto was not pregnant, so why the hell is he looking for furniture for the child? Now the role of Haruno has come to look at Uchiha like an idiot. I am not expressing myself clearly. Uchiha was boiling, tightly pressing his lips, and strangling deeply. He tried. Calm down, he already felt stupid. Asakura even decided to mock and looking at him like he was crazy. It was not clear. Just for what child are you looking for furniture? Haruno was sincerely perplexed, and on top of that for the pacifier with an intent look. So stop. The gears in her head started working with terrifying force. We start the thought process and the conclusion that suggests itself. She categorically did not like Haruno. It was not difficult to reduce the distance between them and grabbing the nipples by the chest, shake him and incinerating look into his eyes. You are who did you make a child for? And she was angry, growling, suspecting the Uchiha of treason. Naruto, or what? He has more than one. If this is so, then for starters he will greet her with fists. Naruto patiently, but through clenched teeth, he said the situation was becoming much more absurd. Pacifiers began to suspect that Sakura had worked in the hospital before. He doubted that she did not know about it. He thought that Naruto would first go to Sakura for a medical examination and consultation, but the situation was becoming more and more ridiculous. Haruno narrowed her eyes suspiciously, expressing all her distress until the thought that Naruto might not have told him that the interesting situation was false shot through her head. So she didn't tell you anything? She mumbled under her breath, unclenching the fabric clenched in her fists. His face, what she didn't say, caught on her indistinct muttering inside. He suddenly froze behind ice from an unclear fear. Chorus knows every second made him feel not only Elliot but also an asshole. A feeling of anxiety with tripled force smeared and on the heart, forcing to experience almost by nickname. Really? His gaze public and the face became even more gloomy. She is not pregnant. It was a false pregnancy, which caused a hormonal imbalance in her body. Immediately reported. Lay it all out as it is. Sakura without a second thought showered her nipples with terms, and as a result of which this happens, considering that Naruto before leaving on a mission did not have time to tell him, and he already came up with all sorts of things that his blood would merge with. Gushed. I thought she told you. Uncertainly extended Haruno, seeing that with each of her words he was becoming even more sullen, already squandering his angry ki, which was running like frost along the skin, and also his hand suspiciously closed on the handle of the katana. Just don't tell me that you have already almost prepared the children's one. Having bought up a shelf of nahi, Sakura could not resist nervously. Stepping back, he glared at her. Not at all picked up. How could I know if I then left her, and she ran away in anger on a mission? Uchiha exploded the cup. His patience snapped. There was not enough room there for new unpleasant news. He felt himself not only a complete goat, but a fool. Squared about his disappointment. He would rather keep quiet. She dragged him to the bottom. Knew not yet strong, but vulture Shea soul dreams to the very bottom. Sasuke abruptly turned away, went away. Hokage to find out to what point in the world this crazy blonde was blown away. Wait, you, Haruno ran after you, that you left her? Sakura did not believe it, although she had too good an opinion of Sasuke and Naruto and idealized him. Well, yes, nothing unusual. Uchiha Sasuke, in any incomprehensible situation, runs away remembering how much it hurt her when he left, breaking all her dreams. She got angry, and how her friend was sobbing on her shoulder, desperately clinging to her white coat. Everything immediately fell into place. Then Uzumaki mourned not her broken expectations but the departure. Uchiha simply kept silent, preferring to deal with her personal problems herself, experiencing everything relatively quietly. Uchiha remained silent. Squeezing the katana tighter, she sped up, running across the rooftops, running away from Haruno and her condemning gaze. Living in his back, Sakura's hole, and without his answer she realized that yes, he had abandoned her, and now he was most likely trying to find a way to rehabilitate himself in Naruto's eyes, showing that he was ready to accept the child by arranging a smart nursery, but he just missed. Uchiha, your mother. Wait. Sakura was literally seething with anger, trying to catch up with her nipples. She felt offended for the people and honestly, she was going to give this idiot a couple of preventive ones now, so that he would think first and then do something, but first, she would catch up with this elusive bastard, but it was too late. Uchiha's cabbage soup was out of her sight. And Haruno suddenly felt stupid and guilty. It seemed that if it weren't for her long tongue, then everything would have been the same for this couple. Naruto had made a mess, and Sasuke had set them on fire. Asakura had only added fuel to the fire. Uchiha, your mother, what are you doing, Osha? Naruto searched, bit and kicked, but stubbornly did not give in under the pressure. It seems that the nipple that had lost its mind. Of course, it was unexpected that Sasuke appeared in her path. She did not expect him and a tiny hope that he would take it, find her, and try to apologize. It was the opposite of the nature of the Uchiha, but unfortunately it happened, and this event struck like a bolt from the blue, causing her to growl to the ground from shock and lose all control over her mind, body, and the situation as a whole. He really caught her by surprise, jumping in front of her like a devil out of a snuff box, inflicting a powerful and discouraging blow that gave him an advantage, and she did not understand how it turned out to be in a compressed tree, and it did not look like an apology at all. I eliminate misunderstandings, he growled, pressing the blonde with his whole body into rough bark, trying to deprive her of the opportunity not only to Borg father but also to breathe normally. What the hell? Misunderstanding. Her eyes burned with righteous anger covered with a crust of resentment. Again her nipples bled with his very appearance made her experience the same shock and resentment that she had when he ran away, leaving her alone with a problem that knocked the ground out from under her feet. I would have your Sharingan and would have burned you. Yes, she did not give up on you, although her ribs were cracking and her back was sore and her own chakra was treacherously failing. Your pregnancy, and feeling how? Naruto froze on this word. The Uchiha brazenly took advantage of the pause, weakening the pressure and stretching the jacket on her in the sense that she looked at him funny, bulging her eyes dumbfounded. I try to understand what is happening now. Companies and opened up in surprise, and in the depths of her pupils faint reflections of fear danced. I know that you are not pregnant. It was a mistake, and I want her right now to fix. Uchiha thought for a long time what he would say to her when they met. Initially he wanted to strangle her on the spot because she made him feel like an asshole and an idiot. It was a strong blow to his egoism, pride, and self-esteem, but then came the understanding that she is important and necessary to him, and he really wants children from her. Therefore to strangle her, or in principle, somehow harm her, is not an option, and he will not forgive himself later. To fix, she did not understand at all in her head what was happening. She was sincerely perplexed, and from his words she forgot to get angry and fight back, and her thought process froze. Uchiha took advantage of this, impatiently pulling off her and Uzumaki's pants here and died, squealed, freeing her hand, and Uchiha slapped him hard in the face while he was distracted by pulling off his own pants. On the pale skin a red imprint of her palm remained. You are an idiot, stated Uzumaki, smiling gloomily from the thought that she charged her nipples in the face, but then getting upset she had to punch him, give the jaw a delicious crunch and a bruise on the cheekbone, purple black and lips in blood, and thoughts of all sorts of obscenities completely flew out of my head. Look how impudent, right away without apologizing. Let's go of his hands to her pants, pulls down. He got cheeky. Maybe, but we'll talk about this later, and now we will eliminate misunderstandings. And Uchiha, leaning towards Naruto, blocked the flow, and an armor with his mouth, pulling her into a kiss. Taking that t-shirt, what are you after all? Hoarsely grumbled Naruto, moving away for a moment from the nipple of the keys. Under his pressure, the flared-up inner desire eclipsed her inner protests and grievances. But she stubbornly did not give in, continuing to pour out her discontent on him. Inveterate Ha-Eats continued, offended mumble, while Uchiha kissed her neck hotly and wetly. If you run away again, I'll break your legs, Dabi, Uchiha said good-naturedly, grabbing Naruto under the buttocks. Uzumaki immediately wrapped her legs around his torso. Shut up, let's just do this, and with one rough push, he entered her. Naruto choked on another curse, but bit her tongue, dissolving together with Uchiha under the pressure of his fiery desire. Naruto lay on her back, looking thoughtfully at the blue sky while nipples gently ran. His fingers over her naked body. Uzumaki didn't know whether to be happy or cry. Whether to be happy that Uchiha found her and came to her, what's so expensive. To cry because she surrendered to his will so easily, having forgotten about her own pride. You're only here for this. Naruto rolled over on her side, looking into his eyes. You're a slowpoke. Nipples assumed that she wouldn't understand him right away. And you're a coward, snorted Naruto offendedly, frowning. I said I want to eliminate the misunderstanding that arose, explained Nipples, pulling the girl who sat down on the couch to himself. Hugging her tightly. What kind of misunderstanding? Naruto buried her face in the crook of his neck. Breathing heavily, you know, I already have a view for us and found a new house and almost furnished the nursery and found out that you are not pregnant, so I came to eliminate this nuance. Nipples affectionately stroked her head, regretting that she hid her face from him. Would he like to see her reaction? Naruto froze for a split second and then abruptly moved away from him with a completely incomprehensible look. Uchiha was serious as never before, and there was no hint of a joke. Kurama, you heard, Uzumaki muttered, and then pounced on the nipples. You are forgiven, stretching her lips in a smile, experiencing a universal attack of happiness, she concluded. Kurama, having understood what the red-eyed man meant, wished to hang himself on his tails. It seems his stupid vessel. And this is not up to the Avengers will be together for a very, very long time, if not always. Nipples suddenly realizes a simple truth when he looks at the sleeping Naruto blonde lying next to him, pressing into him. Although he is a little uncomfortable, fires and the body breaks through to the bottom, but he does not dare to move too much. She snores sweetly and smiles tenderly in her sleep. For this, it was worth achieving her and fighting for their relationship, and Uchiha is more than sure that the people and beautiful. This thought makes the corners of the lips tremble in hints of a warm smile. Kami-sama, and that woman in herself, combines the incompatible and with the same paradoxical ease as she turns the impossible possible, and he is grateful to her for her stubbornness. Otherwise, there would be no trace of him, would drown in the abyss of his hatred and revenge, having fallen into this damned vicious circle. And so he has her, his son Naruto, as if created for him and intended only for him. Only she can keep him in check, only she is equal to him in strength to make it possible, and only in her there is as much warmth and goodness as is needed for one Uchiha lost in the darkness. And even on top there will remain. The truth is simple, he will not back down from her for anything, and is perfectly aware that it is easy to fulfill his plan, because Uchiha are also very stubborn and purposeful. The only thing that can influence his decision is only this, not immediately. A lot of time has passed since their first meeting, but with each passing day he becomes more attached to her. Between them and the truth is unbreakable feedback. They have been through a lot. He was the source of her pain, and for a long time was her failure. Tried to become an executioner for her, but she continued to blindly believe in him and forgive. Between them there was not only bad, but also good, and now this very good was growing exponentially, growing into his essence. Only with it could not be good, warm and comfortable. And Sasuke sensibly realized that even if he left as he planned, that prankster fate would have pitted them against each other until the very end, while they are stubborn and selfish. This year we have not realized the fact that their existence without each other is impossible, although intuition or heart tells us that even death will not separate them. No one and nothing can break such a connection. They are not meant for each other, they are made for each other. They are balance. He is her darkness, she is his sun. Most likely, this is even more than the notorious love. This is something more beyond the mind. Therefore when she wakes up he does not listen to her exclamations and objections, because she will be dragged away by force, will take her to the Hokage, and if necessary, he will shut her up so that if she thinks about disagreement to express it, the couple could not still legitimize their relationship and make Naruto Uchiha. Why resist fate? And he has not been able to resist Naruto lately. But for now, let her sleep and he will enjoy both defenselessness and serenity, inhaling the scent of her skin with tenderness, sorting out soft golden. Naruto's curls kicked and resisted, trying to keep their destructive power in check, but with half a turn I wanted to take let's go into Bija mode to knock on the dark-haired head, but as practice says, this can result in a destructive massacre. Love for Sasuke definitely did not prevent her from treating him as she always would. She will not feel sorry for him. Stop, briefly threw her nipples tighter, intercepting the writhing Naruto. That is, you think it's normal to pull me out of bed and drag me somewhere? Uzumaki was indignant, and no longer the fact that she was flashing her hips from hints on the t-shirt and looked disheveled. Kakashi-sensei, his name is not in vain translated scarecrow. It angered her that she did not have time to open her eyes and stretching out her body that had become numb overnight, and that her impudence jerked the beds without any explanation. Surprise, coldly threw Uchiha heading for the Hokage Tower. Naruto froze for a moment from what is no longer clear. Uchiha and surprise. She definitely woke up. The concept of romance is not available to you before. Uzumaki humbly froze an attempt to be romantic, uncouthly rude and straightforward manner. Uchiha looks tempting. PF gave out nipples, landing on the roof of the residence. So this is what the mission, muttered Uzumaki. Disappointed. Special for the two of us this way, and not that way. Time only together, and spends and even live together in a house, which for their failed family of three acquired nipples. Something like, vaguely said Sasuke, unceremoniously breaking into the office to attack. Kamai's six still had a perfectly round shape a couple of minutes ago. Clone nipples stunned him with an interesting request. Uchiha nodded, carefully lowering his burden from his shoulder and placing it on half Uzumaki. Shuttered wooden flooring, frost street legs, forcing cut. Naruto angry. Poked and elbowed nipples. God, romance, and about, and inconvenience. They don't want to think, just say yes without going into details, ordered. Asked Uchiha. No. People turned away from him, offended, crossing his arms over his chest and pursed his lips discontentedly. Hatake realized that the case is difficult to doom. To sighing, he took control of the situation. Will you marry him? Naruto. Kakashi looked expectantly at his former student, waiting for an answer to the mission, or what to go out instead of him. Uzumaki looked absent-mindedly at the teacher. She didn't understand something in romance or in Sasuke, or maybe in life in general. Uchiha very loudly put his palm to his face, hides and how he is upset and mental abilities of his girlfriend. Hatake nervously chuckled. That and did not change in this life, so this Naruto is still the same. Dabi, get married. They are on a mission. Uchiha turned to her. Everything inside him froze. Of course, he will not accept refusal. That is why he wanted, almost secretly from Naruto, to marry her. To himself, she just needed to say yes, but this is Naruto. She wants everything exactly the opposite. Get married. Naruto thoughtfully frowned, depicting a deep thought process. Yes, nipples began to get irritated. Get married, as if tasting this word. Repeated Naruto. Get married. Uzumaki glanced sideways at Sasuke. Surprise gradually appeared on her face. Get married. Her look became more and more meaningful, and her face more elongated. Emotions changed on her face, with the speed of a flying god of thunder. Her father meaningfulness again changed to shock, to disbelief to joy. That undoubtedly encouraged nipples, but all this suddenly boldly anger. Mary voice became high and disgusting to the ear, in the opinion of sneezing Naruto. Incinerating, looked at him. Surprise romance, and fell to a dangerous hiss. You re-kidding? To growled. This, you saw me give you. Uzumaki pointed to her, his t-shirt on her disheveled hair and sleepy and crumpled face. Is this how to get married? Just say yes. Uchiha rolled his eyes painfully, and she cares about her appearance. He thought that it doesn't bother her at all. Naruto never focused on this. Repeat twice. I will not. You will be my wife. Then Uchiha changed, as well as the look. Softer, warm and full of hope, and only she could understand this. Kakashi warned nipples that Naruto could be outraged by such a thing after all the time that he knows them both. Each of their actions outraged the other. How they even got together, a mystery. How they didn't kill each other at all, a mystery. Covered darkness. You could first agree, and then come, melancholically asked Hatake. The Hokage has more important things to do than register the marriage of two unbalanced teenagers. Despite the fact that these are his favorite students, Naruto sternly looked at Kakashi morally presses bastards, and 1 and 2 hurries her. Okay, mumbled, Naruto launches and hair 5, trying to bring her hair into relative order. Something suddenly became a little nervous. Fingers, godlessly tangled, Naruto stopped empty. Attempts to bring herself back to normal. Uchiha smiled, contentedly intercepting Naruto's hand and encouraging May anyway. Sooner or later their relationship would have reached such a logical denouement, but the soul was warmed by the fact that Sasuke did it quite unexpectedly, and in general, did it although in his Uchiha of Sky manner, but in general, she is happy. Hatake mentally rejoiced. Memorized shackles for their future family happiness, even smiled warmly and sincerely, and literally a couple of seconds later the office was filled with happy squeals. Uzumaki, who jumped from the overflowing and enjoy. Kakashi winced. He had already managed to forget what Naruto was. Noisy and emotional, but everything died down just as suddenly, and it was worth raising his gaze, tearing him away from the marriage registration documents. Kakashi hurried to lower it. Again Uzumaki hung on the nipples, clasping him around the neck with his hands, and a traffic jam with legs. The t-shirt indecently lifted up, but most likely because of the hand sneeze. The future newlyweds kissed and kissed as if no one Hokage was nearby. Ahem. Kakashi coughed muffledly into his fist, attracting the attention of the youth. I think first, you need to put your signatures, and then the groom can kiss the bride, or vice versa, noticed Hatake, but that was I don't care. Oh yeah, no shame no conscience, complained the copyist. When you finish, leave the signatures, it's time for me to go. And sister in the cloud, Shinshina, left the office. He just had to inspect the academy before the start of the school year. Uzumaki ate ramen with pleasure, enjoying already. Raising her eyes, she combined empty plates, there were already 7 of them. But the feeling of hunger did not pass so well, and sat somewhere there in the stomach, pulling and bringing discomfort, and also ate ramen with tomatoes. Tomatoes became an integral part of her life from the very moment they got married. Naruto, for the sake of a pacifier, learned to cook tomato soup and tomato salad, and also stew them with vegetables, and the refrigerator was 40% full of tomatoes, and literally 5 months ago, she began to experiment with the wounded, and she herself got hooked on red boke and tomatoes from those very times. She could not eat noodles without tomatoes. Probably tomatoes somehow contributed to an increase in appetite. Another portion. If you order another portion you will burst. Sight sat down next to him, nodding briefly and smiling amiably. Why is this? Uzumaki asked in bewilderment, tearing a juicy cherry from a branch. Did you see yourself from the side, but easily? He asked, knowing Uzumaki's quick temper and temperament. Although she never took offense at comments like Sakura, she got involved in fights with enviable consistency. Well, yes, Uzumaki said somewhat uncertainly. There's nothing unusual about herself. She didn't notice anything, but everything was as usual. Yes, you look like a ball, say, smiling at the ball. Uzumaki glanced threateningly at Sai, and suddenly offended her friend's remarks, reminding her of the old days when said act were incompatible concepts. Naruto still sometimes knew when to shut up, though rarely. Say, he glanced at her again, holding on and attentively, lingering on her stomach. The sticks in Naruto's hands cracked, breaking in half. Don't worry about it, say. He decided to retreat. Naruto suddenly became such a girl, the instinct of self-preservation that showed after the war. His head screamed that it was better not to raise the topic, and the books about female psychology that he had read earlier clearly hinted that it was better not to focus on a woman's shortcomings, especially if it concerned excess weight. This could offend them. Naruto pouted, burying her face in her bowl. Oh, Naruto, hello, what are you doing? Raku dropped by Kankuro. He knew where to find Naruto. Say hello to her. Hello from the mountain. Say hello. With her mouth full, they said hello, then smiling affably, she left. Very bad. H&M. Kankuro looked at his girlfriend meticulously, noticing that something had changed outwardly. It seemed to be a matter of a couple of kilograms that she had gained, which he stared at as if he had a premonition that thoughts of competition can somehow touch her personality. Growled Uzumaki in a pause between stuffing Mart with noodles. Yes, you seem to have gained a few kilograms, gave out puppet without a twinge of conscience, but seeing how angrily flashed blue eyes bit his tongue. But does it suit you, or what? More feminine became the gaze. Lingered on her chest, which increased by exactly 1.5 sizes. A couple of kilograms clearly went there. The sight hastened to nudge the guest from Suna in the side, seeing where he was looking. There were rumors that Sasuke seemed to intuitively feel that his girlfriend was being stared at by the way in Konoha. No one knew about the fact that people and for a year now on nipples, and could be next to her, spreading a murderous aura, and in the gap of his cloak shone a cat on which that nervous is small. The killer in Sasuke did not die in but said that Sasuke is just an owner to the bone. Sayu also felt unpleasant when someone openly stared at his girlfriend, but he didn't want to tempt fate to such an extent. People and followed Kankuro's gaze and blushed from everything, and immediately competition Arda. Are you ominously stretched out? She's going to get up and slap this joker. Straightening up, she half-turned to the puppet, exuding on the world not to kill. Okay, calm down, I really didn't want to offend. Backed down Suna Wits, seeing that Naruto was seriously intending to get into a fight. I really got fat. Uzumaki became embarrassed. Lately she felt more awkward and clumsy, as if she had gained not a couple of kilograms, but all 10. But in the reflection of the mirror her figure was the same. Maybe Naruto didn't look in the mirror so often. She could tie her eternal ponytails without it, and knew how her Kankuro suit looked on her. Isai silently exchanged glances, and then, as if by agreement, nodded synchronously. Probably ramen should be eaten less. Not quite delicately remarked Uzumaki. Rubbed her cheeks with her palms, starting a tactile inspection. Merge, it seems, her face is not swollen, but still became rounder, or something. Then she felt Kankuro Isai's heavier chest. Tactfully looked away. Well, yes, she had to update her underwear recently. Here she agrees, but that doesn't make her fat. Lowered her hands to her stomach and was horrified. It really did swell slightly and stick out. Did she really eat her stomach and sides? She felt it in a panic. How did she miss the fact that she had gained extra weight? And Sasuke with his eyes, then followed a poke in Naruto's palm. Frozen horror. WW, what is this? She stared at her stomach. The sensations were very strange. And another poke. Naruto removed her hands in a panic, squealing. Not only did her stomach swell a little, but there was also something else inside that was moving. They turned around at her voice, and friends Naruto, paler than chalk in panic confusion, looked at her stomach as if someone would jump out of there now, and she would like to think that it would be her Biju Kurama. If these are your jokes, I will kill you. Barely moving her tongue, said the Jinchuriki, calmed down from the thought that these could be tricks of Kuba did not come. Excitement made her pretend both guys turned their gaze there. Kankuro squinted, surprise mentally. Tooth grinned faces. For this he had to move himself, but the reaction and you from here was worth it. This girl and I will soon be 5 months. Kurama did not want the mouth of the red-eyed to continue, and was not going to contribute to this even if the mouth of his Jinchuriki was interrupted. Let his vessel get pregnant from anyone else, but not from this Uchiha, scoffed degenerate. But still he generously deigned to retreat from his own principles for the sake of fun, and did not lose. It was already 19 weeks, almost 5 obstetric month. People, and a full 18 weeks pregnancy did not notice her condition. Kurama applied all his abilities so that she noticed it. Ideally at the moment of birth, that would have been funny, but it was not in his power. He barely had enough strength to hide this fact. Toxicosis and hormonal imbalance he blocked as best he could, but Naruto still suffered from a feeling of hunger, irritability, and fatigue, and as always did not pay attention to the fact that menstruation was drowning. Absent-mindedness and carelessness of his vessel played into the hands of Uchiha. At any moment, could see the flow of another chakra like anyone and run away. Gunom and Naruto felt the jolts, and his stomach began to stick out. All the same, 3 only did not disrupt the circulation of chakra, and the more it became, the more the flow was disrupted. Naruto in reality almost fainted from a flurry of emotions that with tripled force tore her apart, but Uchiha arrived in time, offering her his Strong shoulder, their connection was really much bigger and deeper than it seemed. Kurama smiled with satisfaction, but still, it would have been much better if this had happened during childbirth. Then the demon fox would have laughed heartily at his joke, and the stunned faces of everyone around Sasuke was happy. Exactly until the moment he heard Naruto scream of pain, and between the intervals of screams that were getting shorter and shorter, Naruto swore that she hated nipples. Swore that she would rip out Uchiha's hands, and of course her causal place, and in general would never again in her life allow him to make love to her. Uchiha wanted to be close to her and hold her hand. He was morally and psychologically ready for any spectacle. Moreover, he wanted with all his heart and soul to see their child at the same moment as Naruto. Raw materials, not us a year and a half ago. He had a different opinion, but everything changes if Naruto is around. But Naruto insisted that he stay away from her. Uzumaki already wanted to kill Sasuke during the contraction. She thought that she was ready for the pain that a woman experiences during childbirth, assumed that it was no more painful than the battle with pain or their final battle with Sasuke, but it turned out that it was very painful, more painful than everything put together, because then the pain was muffled by chakra and the spontaneous release of adrenaline, and the fox as then affected her pain threshold, and now this very chakra did not obey her. Alice, and was sitting in front of the hospital trying to suppress her nervousness. Naruto will not forgive him if he accidentally destroys a couple of blocks of Konoha with his tails for the first time in her life. Naruto felt weak, and Sasuke was in pain from this and worried, because literally a couple of hours separated him from meeting his baby. So he thought somewhere 10 hours ago. Who knew that the first birth is a long process, followed by screams about the fact that she and the chickens will count the tails and will not leave a single one, and Shikaku will have the opportunity to achieve brother until the end of his days, calling the weakest, because where would a tailed one have strength if, according to the rockers, it was calculated by the number of tails? It was a bad idea. Huge eye of Kurama was barely visible through the window of the hospital from the maternity ward. He heard another eloquent curse addressed to his red skin, and then very loudly and painful agreement, thank you. Briefly through Sasuke, I do not share the opinion of his wife and her tailed pet. He was glad it was really a surprise this time. Pleasant. Kurama fooled him too, but Uchiha was very glad the smile did not slip from his face. For a long time, the truth saw her only Naruto that day when she somehow told him what was the matter, and that she was so concussed in Ichiraku. Sasuke twirled her in his arms, not holding back the impulse, and then hugged her for half a day, pressing into her stomach, sometimes with his ear, sometimes gently stroking his hand, smiling every time when felt Naruto's jolt scared him of his opposite reaction last time he ran away, and this time, and so for a couple more days thought that it was just Jinjutsu and nothing more. And don't ask for more, growled Kurama the second time. He won't let her get pregnant and will beat. He will no longer participate in the expansion of the Red-Eyed clan, and it's not him that's worried here, and from the fact that she's in pain, he's just happy with the fresh air too. The air. He's happy that the tails are shaking nervously after all her pregnancy exhausted him at first. He worked almost all 5 months without a break for a result that pleased him equally. An hour, and then this parasite pulled huge volumes of chakra out of him. He was tired no less than herself. Naruto and Uchiha himself could not yet say whether he was ready to relive the pregnancy. Naruto was basically normal wife just from the idol with the wounded and tomatoes, and became a solid emotional and impressionable bundle of nerves, but Sasuke did not particularly notice the differences. She was like that without it, but he became too soft. That undermined his authority as a cold-blooded avenger. It was hard for him to come to terms with his own metamorphoses. Forbid Komi anyone sees how tenderly and sweetly he cooed with her belly rejoicing already more noticeable. Kick. He became more tender, and also paradoxically was obsessed with their future child people, and sometimes jokingly jealous of him for the unborn daughter, but turning away shed a tear of affection. She liked the thawed Sasuke inevitably changed, adapting to the status of his father. Naruto was happy, did not hide it from, cursed his brilliant idea, but was happy because that the devil Naruto infected him with her happiness that Uchiha gave her. Naruto fell silent, or rather stopped cursing. Their screams were interrupted, and with heavy breathing and sobs the leaf no longer looked out his window, most likely his huge red eye like a hawk to watch Naruto. Uchiha could not stand it. Kurama really looked out the window. And in the second was to stick his tail, for which Naruto held on with a death grip like the Chelsea Foresters, and he was worried about Naruto. Sasuke was jealous. Uchiha angrily gritted his teeth, stood next to his wife having endured, and a murderous look took her by the hand. Naruto instantly squeezed his palm until it crunched, but Sasuke did not care if she would break his hand or not. She had the strength. Tsunade only rolled her eyes, but no one should drive out nipples. It was time. Naruto definitely next to them. It became easier. In about 10 minutes their screams were suppressed, and the flow of Naruto he heard crying, and then I saw a newborn who immediately took Shizune, and his world turned upside down. Probably he had never experienced so much joy and happiness before, which he admitted to everyone, and also in gratitude. And when Naruto nevertheless broke his arm with her grip, as it turned out, the process did not stop there. Stayed next to her, although he was going to go for Shizune. Uzumaki could not allow the nipples to be the first to hold their baby in his arms. Kurama only snorted with displeasure when Tsunade's assistant handed over a weakened but too pleased Naruto, already clean wrapped in film, one-time cheek, and the girl gritted his teeth, seeing the happy face of Sharina, not a single asshole in him. Until the last hope did not die that Sasuke would still get scared and run away, but Uchiha turned out to be a strong and very much in love nut, and also a loving father, and instantly recognized that wrinkled pink, the larva, which in Kuba's opinion was completely different from a human, was his child. And 3 years later he did not recognize their child, as well as the marriage as a whole. Kurama was clearly considered a plush toy in this family, and their opinion was not taken into account. How much will he had lost? He lost count. He was angry, grumbled, snorted discontentedly, but allowed Naruto to regularly pull him out of the cage so that Moda could get used to the demon in the forest, or rather, on the contrary. And when Madoka, by the way, was the spitting image of Uchiha, the fact that she had her mother's eyes, Kurama preferred to ignore, which the forest did not like. Top Biju realized that the child was the spitting image of his mother. Sometimes you can't shut her up, and as Bonnie unsubscribed her from herself, then stubbornly went to him, we fill him with okay smart ears, nonsense about friendship, while trying to hug and bask in soft wool. Biju's heart trembled when the dark-haired version of his vessel called him "Oh, what a beautiful fox," and promised to love and stroke his warm and soft wool for the rest of his days. And if it is possible to marry a Biju, Tamada K will definitely take Kurama Y as a husband when he grows up. Then Kurama decided that he would not mind if they had another child, if he would be as strong and firm to love his majesty. And when his beloved dark-haired baby turned 4, a charming chubby boy was born, and a wife who immediately after birth from yanked dagger Ramu by the tail. And what kind of delirium he was there that he allowed Naruto to get pregnant again. Definitely he will not allow them to have more children, so it is possible to remain bald, and 2 is enough for them. 4. The notorious lived happily ever after court make it is generally impossible to live without happiness. They are undoubtedly Bessie or each other from the first breath, from the first sight. A moment before meeting, as if it was laid in them at birth. Nipples irritated her carelessness and attempts to prove something to everyone and everything, and of course, and stupid idiotic smiles, so he always tried to turn away. Naruto infuriated his arrogance and haughtiness. Even as a child he was already an absolute bastard, but most of all, she was irritated by his back, which she always contemplated. No matter how she ran after him, did not try to prove to him that she was better than him, at least in something. He always stood with his back not even trying to look. She despised him and envied him. He was smarter, stronger, catcher, more handsome, genius, and was a boy, she was a girl. Naruto Uzumaki's academic performance suffered on all fronts except physical education. Only she was not taken into the football team, where the same Uchiha was not taken into the martial arts club too. Puny two-girl crowds of girls ran after him and all the boys avoided him, but on the other hand she was A girl the ability to clash in a fight with the most popular and strongest boy, but most often it turned out the loser, but Sasuke didn't leave without bruises, and she was trying her best to be on the same level with him and still maybe make friends once they become equal. He pushed people away from himself. She, on the contrary, attracted everyone except him. Even Haruno Sakura the number one Uchiha fan suddenly became friends with Naruto. In impotent rage, she called him team. He arrogantly smiled and spat out Dabi with all his disdain, but in middle school their paths diverged inside. Suddenly it became empty. Naruto became sad, the main incentive to become better. Nipples disappeared. He was glad he didn't need it. It was stupid, and the rivalry that this awkward girl stubbornly imposed. He already knew that he was the best, but now there was no one around at whose expense one could look better and cooler. Nipples, she almost forgot Naruto. He had a different life, other interests, people, and almost didn't forget Nipples because somewhere out there is an arrogant Uchiha who is better than her in everything. This the thought made her move, and forward she graduated from high school with honors at the university, received a scholarship and got a job at a prestigious company. Fools are lucky. Can't hold back a caustic comment Nipples when he meets her in the hallway near the HR department, and it's easy to recognize all the same bright hair, all the same stripes on the cheeks, and also a wide, ugly, annoying smile. Only there can be no talk of teenage awkwardness, and Uchiha. Another item appears in the list of reasons and hatred of Uzumaki Naruto, from whom Uzumaki herself shook off the dust with her appearance. All the same arrogant hissing blonde Naruto gets going in a half turn. If it weren't for the uncomfortable business suit heels and some kind of but norms of decency, Naruto, as in the good old days, would have tried to get into a fight, but passing by Uchiha, she gives him a fist in the solar plexus and proudly raising her head leaves, listening to how he breathes intermittently, clearly bent in half, and hugging her stomach. To hell, she won't work here. So whom can she meet but Sasuke? Uchiha, in this company, she didn't expect to meet. The next day Naruto doesn't come to sign employment contracts and accepts an offer from a competing company headed by Itachi Uchiha. They broke deals from each other with enviable consistency. Either Naruto will steal a profitable contract from under Uchiha's nose, or her. Nipples. Uchiha was angry because that blonde was on par with him, a fair-haired idiot. He always considered her stupid and didn't miss the opportunity to accuse her of the fact that she gets the signature on their financial contracts exclusively for her pretty eyes, and her eyes really were pretty, as were her legs. As soon as they met within the framework of work, sparks flew in all directions between them as if they converged, not in verbal battles and on swords. Naruto fiercely and passionately defended her position, sometimes surprising with the twists of her logic. Sasuke was its complete opposite, cold and dispassionate. Truth, more and more often he caught himself thinking that it was worth her to start defending her opinion, as inside him as if something clicked, the launch and strange mechanisms, and he was already specially wound up, and knowing that from the stairs with a worthy opponent his blood was boiling. Despite all his impenetrable appearance, their words cut, pricked, crossed the boundaries of reason, sometimes bringing with them pain, especially after they were left alone, which their assistants tried not to allow. Shikamaru always tried. You take her before she clashed in one battle with Sasuke. Already, you are those what Juga. Nipples. After all the transition to personalities was provided, they with special pleasure picked around in what was hidden from others. Both then collected the shreds of their souls piece by piece, washing down with alcohol, and only they saw that each other had heart behind the facade of a strong and independent woman with a wide smile, hid a lonely and vulnerable nature overflowing with suffering and pain behind the facade of a self-sufficient bachelor, hid a deeply lonely boy who lacked warmth and attention. They realized this when they almost turned 30. Naruto did not immediately understand that she wanted to help pull the Nipples out of this swamp, because she herself was boiling in it, and it was painful and unpleasant. There was much more compassion in her than pride, for that Sasuke had much more pride than compassion, and he resisted with all his might, but he himself did not immediately understand when. After the deals he began to drink with her more often, and persistence it was difficult to refuse, and the fact that she acted with her pride warmed the soul, for the time being silently. listening to her stories about how she keeps a tame forest at home, which she picked up on the side of the road, and went out herself about how her friend from the institute has a pet raccoon at home. And as soon as they cross paths on a walk in the park, the animals roll head over heels in the grass about what she said and talked about herself until he started talking about his life, and literally after a year of such gatherings, Sasuke made peace with his brother, not without Naruto's help. Another 6 months later, he and Itachi found a common language, and there was no more tension in their communication. A month later, Sasuke worked for Itachi's company, going to Naruto's company to conclude profitable contracts. Standing on the same side of the barricade turned out to be strange and exciting, but in tandem they worked even better and more productively. Their mutual hatred and hostility came to naught. They died out completely. It seemed like they had become friends, and this was after more than 20 years of dating. The struggle between them remained only on the basis of wit, but they were also friends. Not for long, because Nipples instantly understood that her eyes are too beautiful, and legs too. And smiles are not idiotic, and lips are so soft and hot, and Naruto gave in, drowning in his gaze, finally realizing that Sasuke turned to face her and she is no longer chasing the image from childhood, trying to become better, and it seems that this happened quite a long time ago. She just did not notice, and in order to understand this, he needed to crash into her with his lips, and this is where this story ends. Thank you all.